I said get out. Margaret Morrison's hand connected with Jessica's face. The slap echoed through the kitchen like a gunshot. 18 months of feeding you, housing you, tolerating you. It ends now. Jessica Harper stumbled backward, one hand flying to her cheek, the other instinctively protecting her 7-month pregnant belly. Her 4-year-old daughter Emma stood frozen in the doorway, clutching a stuffed rabbit, watching her mother get hit. Mommy, you have 10 minutes. Margaret's voice was ice. Take what you can carry. Leave your keys on the counter. If you're not gone by 6:30, I'm calling the police. Margaret, please. It's 20 degrees outside. I'm pregnant. Emma can stay. Margaret smiled. The smile of a woman who had planned this moment for months. She's a Morrison. She belongs with family. You don't. And there it was, the real offer, the real threat. Give up your daughter or freeze on the streets. Jessica looked at her mother-in-law, at the woman who had held her hand at Daniel's funeral and promised that family takes care of family, at the woman who was now trying to steal her child. No. Excuse me. I said no. Emma is my daughter. She goes where I go. Margaret's face twisted into something ugly. Then you'll both freeze. See if I care. 15 minutes later, Jessica stood under a flickering streetlight counting crumpled bills with numb fingers. $67. 3 garbage bags containing everything she and Emma owned, and a choice that would change everything. Before we continue this incredible journey, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and follow Jessica's story to the very end. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story has traveled. Now let us begin. Jessica's fingers kept counting even though she already knew the answer. $20, $40, $60, $67. The same number every time, as if hoping would make more bills appear. Emma pressed against her leg, shivering. Mommy, my hands are cold. Jessica knelt down, took her daughter's small hands, breathed warm air onto them. The baby kicked hard against her ribs, a protest against the cold, against the fear, against everything that had led them to this moment. I know, sweetheart. We're going to get warm soon. I promise. When are we going back inside? The question broke something in Jessica's chest. She pulled Emma close, felt her daughter's small body trembling, and made a decision. We're not going back inside that house. Ever. We're going on an adventure instead. What kind of adventure? The kind where we find a new home, a better home, a home where nobody can ever hurt us again. 30 minutes earlier, Jessica had been standing in the Morrison kitchen, still wearing her grease-stained uniform from the double shift at the diner. 16 hours on her feet, 7 months pregnant, exhausted beyond words. But she had made it home by 6:20, only 20 minutes late. 20 minutes. That was all it took to destroy her life. Margaret had been waiting, standing in the kitchen with Kevin and Rachel flanking her like guards. A tribunal assembled for judgment. You're late. Margaret's voice had been calm, terrifyingly calm. The shift ran over, a party came in at closing, and I don't want excuses, I want obedience, 20 minutes late while my father sat in his own filth waiting for you to change him. I called Kevin. I asked him to check on your father until I got home. And I told her, Kevin said, stepping forward, that it wasn't my job. That's what you're here for, isn't it? That's the arrangement. Jessica had felt her hands shaking. 18 months of this. 18 months of working double shifts, paying rent, caring for Margaret's dementia-ridden father, being treated like a servant rather than family. 18 months of waiting for Daniel's life insurance money that Margaret's lawyer had frozen in probate. The arrangement, Jessica said slowly, was that I pay rent and contribute to the household, not that I become a full-time nurse for your father while also working 60 hours a week. The arrangement, Rachel said, her voice dripping with contempt, was whatever my mother decides it is. You came here with nothing. You'd be homeless without us. I came here with a daughter and a dead husband, your brother. Remember him. The words landed like bombs. Kevin's face flushed red. Rachel took a step back, but Margaret just smiled. Daniel made a mistake marrying you. We all knew it. A girl from nowhere, no family, no money, no connections. You trapped him with a pregnancy, and now you're trying to trap us with another one. I was pregnant before Daniel died. This is his baby. So you say. The accusation hung in the air. Jessica felt the room spinning. They were accusing her of cheating on her dead husband, of carrying another man's child, of being a whore and a gold digger and everything else they had been whispering for 18 months. I loved Daniel. You loved his insurance policy, $75,000. That's what Daniel was worth to you. Your lawyer froze that money. I haven't seen a cent, Neum, because it should go to Emma. Kevin stepped closer, his voice rising. To our niece. To the Morrison family, not to you. Emma is my daughter. Emma is Daniel's daughter. There's a difference. Jessica understood then. Understood what they really wanted. Not the insurance money, not the rent, not her unpaid labor caring for a man who didn't recognize his own children. They wanted Emma. They wanted to take her daughter and throw her away like garbage. No, Jessica's voice came out stronger than she felt. Absolutely not. No, Margaret raised an eyebrow. You don't get to say no. You don't get to say anything. You're a guest in my house, and I'm asking you to leave. Emma stays. You go. If I go, Emma goes with me. Then you both freeze. Margaret shrugged. Makes no difference to me. I'll have custody within a month either way. Unfit mother, homeless, pregnant, and unemployable. What judge would give you custody over us? The threat was real. Jessica knew it was real. In a custody battle between a single homeless mother and the Morrison family, wealthy, connected, respected, she would lose. She would lose everything. But she would die before she gave up her daughter. 10 minutes, Margaret said. Take what you can carry. Leave your keys on the counter. Jessica walked to Emma's room. Packed clothes into garbage bags. Packed toys. Packed the stuffed rabbit that Daniel had given Emma on her 3rd birthday 2 weeks before his heart stopped during a company softball game. Emma watched from the doorway. Mommy, what are you doing? We're going on a trip, sweetheart, just you and me. What about Grandma Margaret? Grandma Margaret she's not coming. Is she mad at us? Jessica pulled her daughter close, breathed in the smell of her hair, felt the baby kick as if reminding her that there were 2 children depending on her now, not just one. Some people get angry for no good reason, baby. It's not your fault. It's not my fault. It's just something broken inside them. Can we fix it? No, sweetheart, we can't fix it, but we can go somewhere better, somewhere safe. Would you like that? Emma nodded, her small face serious. Will Daddy be there? The question hit Jessica like a physical blow. Daniel had been gone for 18 months, but Emma still asked about him, still expected him to walk through the door, still didn't understand that death meant forever. Daddy is watching us from heaven, Jessica said, her voice cracking. He'll be watching over us wherever we go. They walked out the front door at 6:28. Margaret stood in the hallway, arms crossed, watching them leave. Kevin and Rachel flanked her, identical expressions of triumph on their faces. You'll be back, Margaret called out. When you realize you have nowhere to go, you'll come crawling back. And when you do, Emma stays with us, permanently. Jessica didn't answer. She walked down the driveway, 1 garbage bag on each shoulder, a 3rd dragging behind her, Emma's hand clutched in hers. The door closed behind them. The porch light clicked off. 20 minutes later, she stood under a streetlight, counting $67 and trying to figure out how to survive. The Greyhound station was 3 miles away. Jessica carried Emma most of the way, her pregnant body screaming in protest with every step. The garbage bags cut into her shoulders. Her back ached. Twice she had to stop and breathe through contractions that she prayed were just false labor. Inside the station, fluorescent lights turned everything gray. A woman behind the ticket counter barely looked up from her phone. Help you. 2 tickets to Aspen. 1 adult, 1 child. That's $38. Jessica counted out the bills. $38 gone. 29 left. Enough for a taxi to her grandfather's cabin. Maybe. Bus leaves in 45 minutes. Gate 7. Jessica found a bench, pulled Emma onto her lap, tried to remember everything she knew about her grandfather's property. Robert Harper had died in 2010, geological engineer, spent his whole life chasing gold deposits that everyone said didn't exist. Her mother had inherited his cabin, never visited, paid minimal property taxes until she died in 2012. Then the cabin passed to Jessica. She had visited once during college, found the place abandoned, creepy, falling apart, decided it wasn't worth the trouble and forgot about it. Now it was the only thing standing between her and the streets. Jessica pulled out her phone. 18% battery. No charger. She searched for the address, found the pin she had saved years ago. Satellite view showed a gray roof among trees. Property records said uninhabitable. Recommended for demolition. Uninhabitable was better than nothing. Mommy? Emma tugged at her sleeve. I'm hungry. Jessica looked at her daughter. Looked at the vending machine across the station. A bag of chips cost $1.50. A bottle of water cost $2. She bought both. Watched Emma eat like she hadn't seen food in days. Realized that in the Morrison house, food had become another weapon. Smaller portions for the unwanted guests. Leftovers instead of fresh meals. 1,000 small cruelties disguised as economy. Is it good? Emma nodded, mouthful of chips. Can I have more? Later, sweetheart. We need to save our money. Are we poor now? The question came with no judgment, just curiosity. A 4-year-old trying to understand a world that had stopped making sense. We're starting over, like a game. We have a little bit of money and we need to make it last until Mommy finds a job. Will you find a job in the mountains? I hope so, baby. I really hope so. The bus ride took 4 hours. Through Denver's sprawl into the mountain darkness, climbing higher with every mile. Emma slept against the window. Jessica stared at her reflection in the glass, trying to recognize herself. Structural engineer. That's what she had been. Before Daniel. Before marriage. Before grief taught her that stability was an illusion. Bridges had made sense. Steel and concrete following predictable rules. Problems with definite solutions. Nothing about her life followed rules anymore. Her phone buzzed. A text from Margaret. You'll regret this. When Emma gets sick, when you can't pay for food, when you realize what you've thrown away, don't come crying to us. You made your choice. Jessica deleted the message. Blocked the number, then blocked Kevin, then Rachel. A clean break. The only kind that would let her survive. The Aspen station was empty at midnight, a bench under sodium lights. A payphone that probably hadn't worked in a decade, wind cutting through the mountains like a knife. Jessica found a taxi, an old man with kind eyes and a truck that had seen better decades. Where to? Old Mountain Road, the Harper cabin. It's about... I know it. The driver's eyebrows rose. That place has been abandoned for 15 years. You sure that's where you want to go? It's the only place I have. He looked at her pregnant belly, at Emma sleeping in her arms, at the garbage bags piled on the sidewalk. Rough night. Rough 18 months. He nodded slowly. Get in. I'll take you as far as the road allows. The drive took 35 minutes. Pavement to gravel, gravel to dirt, dirt to something barely wider than a hiking trail. Finally, the truck stopped. Can't go further. Road's washed out. Your place is maybe half a mile up. You need help carrying those bags. I can manage. Here. He reached into his glove compartment, pulled out a flashlight. Take this. Mountain dark is different from city dark. You'll need it. I can't pay you for I'm not asking for payment. He met her eyes. I had a daughter once, got herself into trouble, needed help, nobody would give it. Ended badly. If I can help someone else's daughter, maybe it balances out somehow. Jessica felt tears threatening. Forced them back. Thank you. Name's Earl. If you need anything, I'm in the phone book. What's left of it anyway? The truck disappeared down the mountain. Jessica shouldered the garbage bags, held Emma, with one arm started walking. The cabin appeared through the trees like a nightmare made solid. Listing to one side, porch collapsing, windows broken or boarded, a structure that looked like it should have fallen down years ago and was only standing out of spite. Jessica circled it slowly, her engineer's brain cataloging damage. Foundation cracked but intact. Framing solid enough. Roof rusted but still covering most of the structure. Not safe, not legal, but not immediately lethal. The front door was locked. She put her shoulder into it. Wood crumbled. The door swung open. Inside darkness, the smell of decay, a living room frozen in time. Emma woke up. Mommy, where are we? Home. Jessica said the word, feeling strange in her mouth. This is our new home. The first night was survival. Nothing more. Jessica found the wood stove. Found firewood stacked against a wall miraculously dry. Found matches in a kitchen drawer. Spent an hour trying to start a fire, failing, trying again, failing again. Emma watched from a nest of blankets Jessica had pulled from a cedar chest. Mommy, it's cold. I know, baby. I'm working on it. Can't we turn on the heater? There's no electricity here. We have to make fire the old-fashioned way. Like camping. Exactly like camping. The fire finally caught on the 9th attempt. Heat spread through the room. The cabin stopped feeling like a tomb and started feeling like something that might possibly be survivable. Jessica checked her phone. 7% battery, no signal, no way to call for help if something went wrong. She looked at her daughter sleeping peacefully by the fire, placed her hands on her pregnant belly and felt the baby move. We're going to be okay, she whispered. I don't know how yet, but we're going to be okay. Morning came gray and cold. Jessica explored the cabin room by room. Kitchen with mouse droppings and empty cupboards. Bathroom with a toilet that no longer functioned. Bedrooms with mattresses too mildewed to use. A study filled with boxes of papers, maps, geological surveys. Her grandfather's work. Decades of searching for gold that everyone said didn't exist. The well outside had a hand pump. Broken, but Jessica could see how it might be fixed. The property had potential, bones that were good beneath the decay. She counted her remaining money. $29, enough to buy food for maybe 3 days. After that, nothing. "Mommy, I'm hungry." Jessica found canned beans in the pantry. Old but sealed properly, no bulging, no rust. She heated them over the wood stove, served them on paper plates she'd found in a cupboard. Emma ate everything, asked for more. "That's all we have right now, sweetheart, but I'm going to find more today, I promise." The walk into town took almost 2 hours. Jessica carried Emma for the last mile, her body screaming in protest. Contractions came and went, mild but persistent. 8 weeks until her due date. 8 weeks to create something livable from nothing. The town was small. One main street, a hardware store, a diner, a general store. People who looked at her like they knew she didn't belong. Jessica walked into the diner. A woman behind the counter, 60-ish hard eyes softened by smile lines. "Help you. I'm looking for work, any work. I can waitress, clean, cook, anything." The woman studied her, the pregnant belly, the exhaustion, the desperation poorly hidden behind a facade of competence. "You new in town?" "I just moved into my grandfather's place, Robert Harper's cabin up on the mountain." A man at the counter turned around. 70s weathered face hands that had known hard work. Robert Harper. The geologist? "You knew him. Knew him. I was his neighbor for 40 years. Frank Dawson." He stood, moved closer, studied her face. "You're Linda's daughter, Jessica. I remember you visiting when you were small." "That was a long time ago." "Not so long." Frank's eyes moved to her belly, to the exhaustion written across her face. "What brings you back here?" Jessica opened her mouth to lie. To say something about wanting a fresh start, needing space, any excuse that didn't involve garbage bags and slaps and being thrown away by the only family she had left. Instead, the truth came out. Maybe because she was too tired to lie. Maybe because Frank's eyes reminded her of her grandfather's. "I got kicked out. My husband's family. They wanted me gone, so they threw me out. I had nowhere else to go." Frank absorbed this without judgment. Pregnant and alone. "I have my daughter, Emma." Jessica gestured to the booth where Emma sat coloring on a paper placemat. "She's all I have left. That cabin's been empty for 15 years. No power, no water, not fit for habitation. It's what I have." Frank looked at her for a long moment. Then he turned to the woman behind the counter. "Rose, get this woman some breakfast. On my tab." "I can't accept." "You can and you will. Robert Harper saved my life in 1985. I never got to pay him back. He died before I could." Frank's voice was firm but gentle. "Whatever you need, you ask." That's how Robert would have wanted it. Jessica felt the walls she'd built starting to crack. 18 months of surviving alone. 18 months of being told she was worthless, a burden, a mistake. And here was a stranger offering kindness like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Why?" The word came out smaller than she intended. "You don't know me." "I know Robert. I know what he would have done if our positions were reversed." Frank sat down across from her. "Now, tell me what you need to make that cabin livable." The list was long. Well pump repair, roof patches, weatherproofing, food, basic supplies. Things that would cost hundreds of dollars Jessica didn't have. Frank listened without interrupting. Then he stood up. "I'll be at your place tomorrow morning with tools. We'll start with the well pump. After that, we'll see about the rest." "I can't pay you." "I'm not asking for payment. I'm asking you to survive. That's all Robert would have wanted." Rose brought breakfast. Eggs, bacon, toast, orange juice for Emma. Coffee strong enough to wake the dead for Jessica. She ate without tasting her body, demanding fuel whether she wanted it or not. "I'm looking for morning help," Rose said, watching Jessica eat. 7 to 3, 5 days, 11 an hour plus tips. Tips are good. Breakfast crowd takes care of their people. "I'm due in 8 weeks." "My daughter can cover for you when the time comes. After that, we'll figure it out." Rose's face softened. "I was alone once, too. Pregnant, scared, no idea how I was going to survive. Someone gave me a chance. Now I'm giving you one." Jessica felt tears streaming down her face. She couldn't stop them. 18 months of holding everything together, and 2 strangers were undoing her with simple kindness. "Thank you," she managed. "Thank you both." The weeks that followed were the hardest of Jessica's life. Every morning up at 5 to restart the fire, get Emma ready for the school bus that Frank had arranged to pick her up at the end of the dirt road, walk to town because there was no money for a car, work 7 hours on feet swollen from pregnancy, walk back, work on the cabin until dark, fall into exhausted sleep, repeat. Frank came every weekend with materials and expertise, fixed the well pump on the first visit, patched the roof on the second, installed basic wiring for lights on the third. His wife Martha brought food, casseroles and soups and fresh bread, clothes for Emma that her grandchildren had outgrown, prenatal vitamins she'd bought without being asked. "You're going to need these," Martha said, pressing the bottle into Jessica's hands. "The baby needs them even if you think you don't." "I don't know how to thank you. Have a healthy baby? That's all the thanks I need." November brought the first real snow. Jessica watched it fall through windows that Frank had helped her repair, feeling something she hadn't felt in 18 months. Hope. The cabin was livable now, not comfortable, not by any modern standard, but warm and dry and safe. She had saved $300 from her diner wages, had paid down some of the property tax debt, had created something from nothing, through sheer stubborn will. Emma was thriving, making friends at school, coming home with artwork and stories, adjusting to mountain life like she'd been born to it. "Mommy, she said one evening watching Jessica cook dinner on the wood stove. "I like it here." "You do?" "The trees are pretty, and Miss Martha gives me cookies, and there's no yelling." No yelling. Such a simple thing. Such a profound relief for a 4-year-old who had spent 18 months listening to adults fight about money and resentment and things she didn't understand. "I like it here too, sweetheart." "Can we stay forever?" "We can stay as long as you want." Jessica's phone buzzed. The phone that now had a charger, now had signal, now connected her to a world she'd been cut off from, a voicemail from a number she didn't recognize. "Miss Harper, this is attorney Michael Reynolds from Morrison & Associates. I represent Margaret Morrison in the matter of Emma Harper Morrison's custody. Mrs. Morrison has filed a petition alleging parental abandonment and unfitness. You are required to appear at a hearing on December 15th. Please contact our office immediately." The phone slipped from Jessica's fingers. They were coming for Emma. They were actually coming for her daughter. Jessica grabbed the phone, dialed the number, waited through 3 rings. "Morrison & Associates? This is Jessica Harper. I just received a message about a custody hearing." "One moment, please." Hold music. 30 seconds that felt like 30 hours. "Miss Harper, this is Attorney Reynolds. Thank you for calling back. You can tell Margaret Morrison that she's not getting my daughter. Mrs. Morrison's petition alleges that you abandoned the family home, took Emma without consent, and are currently living in conditions unsuitable for a child. Given your current living situation and financial status, she believes custody should transfer to the Morrison family." "I didn't abandon anything. She threw me out, in the middle of winter, while I was 7 months pregnant." "That's not what Mrs. Morrison's statement indicates." "Her statement is a lie." "That will be for the court to decide. The hearing is December 15th. I suggest you secure legal representation." The line went dead. Jessica stood frozen, and the phone clutched in her hand. Outside, snow fell softly. Inside, Emma played with dolls Martha had given her, oblivious to the storm gathering. They were going to take her daughter. After everything, the garbage bags, the freezing nights, the $67, the months of clawing survival, they were going to win anyway. The phone buzzed again, this time a text from Margaret. "I told you that you'd regret this. See you in court." Jessica felt something shift inside her. Something that had been fear transforming into rage. She called Frank, explained the situation, listened to his silence, heavy with understanding. "I know a lawyer," he said finally. "Young woman just opened practice in town. Does pro bono work for people who need it. Want me to call her till please." "Jessica," Frank's voice was gentle, "they're not going to win. You're a good mother. Anyone can see that. Margaret Morrison has money, connections, a family name that means something. I have nothing. You have something more important. You have the truth, and you have people willing to fight for you." The lawyer's name was Sarah Chen, 32 years old. Stanford law graduate who had given up a 6-figure corporate job to help people who couldn't afford justice. She arrived at Jessica's cabin 2 days later, took one look at the living space, and smiled. "They said you were living in squalor. This is nicer than my first apartment." "Is it enough to keep Emma?" Sarah sat down at the kitchen table Jessica had salvaged from the cabin's storage room. "Tell me everything, from the beginning. Don't leave anything out." Jessica talked for 2 hours. The funeral, Margaret's promises, the slow escalation of abuse, the rent payments, the caregiving, the 18 months of being told she was worthless, the night she was thrown out, the slap, the offer to separate mother from daughter. Sarah took notes, asked questions, built a timeline of documented abuse. "The slap," she said finally. "Did anyone see it?" "Emma saw it." A 4-year-old's testimony, tricky but possible. Sarah leaned forward. "Here's what we have. Documentation of rent payments proving you contributed to the household. Your work schedule proving you weren't unemployed or lazy. Medical records showing prenatal care proving you're taking care of the baby. School records showing Emma's thriving, proving you're a fit parent." Is it enough? Against the Morrison family. Maybe, maybe not. Sarah's eyes were steady. But we have something they don't have. What? The truth, and a very good story about a grandmother who slapped a pregnant woman and tried to steal her grandchild. The weeks before the hearing passed in a blur of preparation. Sarah built their case piece by piece, gathered evidence, took statement minutes from Frank and Martha about Jessica's character and parenting, documented every improvement to the cabin. Jessica worked double shifts to pay for legal filing fees, came home exhausted, fell into bed, got up and did it again. Emma sensed something was wrong. "Mommy, are you sad?" "I'm tired, sweetheart, but I'm not sad." "Is someone trying to take me away?" The question stopped Jessica cold. 4 years old, and Emma already understood that adults could be dangerous, already knew that safety was conditional. "Some people want to take you away from me, but I'm not going to let them. I promise you, Emma, no one is ever going to take you away from me." What if they win? They won't win. But what if they do? Jessica pulled her daughter close, felt Emma's small body against her swollen belly, felt the baby kick as if adding her voice to the conversation. "Then I'll fight. Every day, every way I can, until I get you back. Until we're together again, no matter how long it takes." Emma was quiet for a moment. Then, "I don't want to live with Grandma Margaret. She's mean." "I know, baby." "She made you cry. I saw it." "When did you see that?" "Lots of times. When you thought I was sleeping, you would cry in the kitchen. I could hear it through the walls." Jessica felt her heart breaking. All those nights she'd thought she was hiding her pain from her daughter. All those tears she'd cried alone in the Morrison kitchen, believing Emma couldn't hear. Children always heard. Children always knew. "I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry you had to hear that." "It's okay, Mommy. You're not crying anymore. That means we're in the right place." November 22nd, the night before the custody hearing. Jessica couldn't sleep. She sat by the wood stove watching flames dance, trying to prepare herself for what was coming. Tomorrow she would face Margaret Morrison in court, face the family that had thrown her away, fight for the right to keep her own daughter, and she might lose. The weather forecast showed a major storm system moving in, heavy snow, high winds, possible whiteout conditions. Frank had called earlier, voice worried. "You should come into town, stay with Martha and me until the storm passes. That cabin is old, these mountain storms. I have to be at the courthouse tomorrow at 9. I can't risk being snowed in somewhere else." "Jessica, this is going to be bad, really bad. I know, but I don't have a choice." At 11:47 p.m., the storm announced itself. Wind that shook the cabin walls, snow that turned the world white, and something else. A boom from the basement. Deep, structural, wrong. Jessica grabbed a flashlight, checked that Emma was sleeping, descended the stairs into darkness. The basement was chaos. A shelf had fallen, spilling decades of junk across the floor. But that wasn't what had made the noise. In the corner, a section of brick wall had separated from the structure around it. Not collapsed, revealed. As if the storm's vibration had finally broken whatever seal had held it in place. Behind the bricks, a void. A hidden room. Jessica's engineering mind screamed at her to stop, to wait for daylight, to think rationally. Her hands kept pulling bricks away. The room was small, concrete-lined, sealed against moisture. In the center, covered in dust thick as fur, sat a safe. Old, industrial, the kind of safe that belonged in a bank vault. Jessica tried the handle. It turned. Inside, leather pouches that clinked. Stacks of paper, a thick ledger, and a sealed envelope addressed to my heir. Jessica carried everything upstairs, spread it across the kitchen table, opened a leather pouch. Gold coins spilled across the wood. Real gold. Heavy. Dates stamped 1890s through 1920s. The papers were stock certificates. Rocky Mountain Mineral Consortium, Inc. 90,000 shares total. The ledger showed careful records. Investments, dividends, valuations. The final entry dated 1985. Total shares 90,000. Estimated value if company still operating $28 million. Do not tell family yet. Wait for the right time. $28 million. In 1985, 40 years ago. What would those shares be worth now? Jessica's hands shook as she searched on her phone. 3% battery. Dying. Rocky Mountain Mineral Consortium had merged. Changed names. Become Summit Mining Holdings. Private company. Current valuation $890 million. Her phone died before she could process what she'd found. But she'd seen enough. 90,000 shares. If they had converted properly through all the mergers, if they were still valid, she might be sitting on hundreds of millions of dollars. Jessica sat in darkness, gold coins gleaming on the table, stock certificates that might be worthless or might be a fortune beyond comprehension. Tomorrow she had to fight for her daughter in court. Tonight she'd discovered that her grandfather, the man everyone said died poor chasing dreams, might have been richer than anyone imagined. The envelope sat unopened. My heir. Her grandfather's handwriting. Whatever message lay inside it had waited 40 years to be read. Jessica reached for it, and then a contraction hit. Real, strong, unmistakable. She gasped, gripped the table edge, felt water streaming down her legs. Her water had broken. The baby was coming, 6 weeks early, in a cabin with no power, no phone, in the middle of the worst storm in decades, with a custody hearing in 9 hours and a fortune in gold coins on her kitchen table. Jessica grabbed the emergency radio Frank had given her, pressed the call button with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Frank, are you there? Static, then Jessica, what's wrong? The baby's coming. My water broke. It's too early. The roads. Another contraction. She couldn't hold back the scream. Hold on. Frank's voice was calm but urgent. I'm calling emergency services. Mountain Rescue. They have the equipment to get through. Jessica, listen to me. Breathe. I'm coming. We're all coming. Emma appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eye. Mommy, why are you screaming? Jessica looked at her daughter, at the gold coins scattered across the table, at the storm raging outside. The baby's coming, sweetheart. Your little sister is coming. Now? Right now. Emma's face shifted, 4 years old, and already understanding that sometimes the world didn't wait for convenient timing. She walked to her mother, took her hand. It's okay, Mommy. I'll help. Tell me what to do. And in that moment, as another contraction built, and the storm howled, and a fortune sat forgotten on the table, Jessica Harper realized something. She wasn't alone. She never had been. The contraction ripped through Jessica's body like fire. She gripped the edge of the kitchen table, knuckles white, breathing through teeth clenched so hard she thought they might crack. Emma stood beside her, 4 years old and terrified, holding her mother's hand with both of hers. Mommy, you're hurting me. Jessica forced herself to loosen her grip. I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry. The radio crackled, Frank's voice distant through static. Jessica, can you hear me? Mountain Rescue is on the way. 20 minutes, maybe 30. The roads are bad, but they're coming. 20 minutes. Jessica laughed, and the sound was closer to a sob. I don't have 20 minutes. What do you mean? Another contraction. 3 minutes since the last one. Too fast. Way too fast. The contractions are 3 minutes apart. My water broke 10 minutes ago. This baby is coming now, Frank. Right now. Silence on the radio. Then Martha's voice, calm and steady. Jessica, this is Martha. I was a nurse for 30 years. I'm going to talk you through this. Can you get to somewhere comfortable? The couch? The bed? I can't move. Every time I try. Another contraction cut her off. She screamed into her fist, trying not to terrify Emma more than she already had. Okay, sweetheart. Stay where you are. Emma, honey, can you hear me? Emma grabbed the radio with shaking hands. Yes, Miss Martha. You're going to be such a brave girl. I need you to get some towels. Clean ones. Can you do that? Yes. Emma ran to the bathroom, came back with an armful of towels Jessica had washed just yesterday. I got them. Good girl. Put them on the floor by your mommy. Jessica, I need you to get down on those towels. Can you do that? Jessica lowered herself to the floor, 1 agonizing inch at a time. The wood was cold. The towels were thin. None of it mattered, because another contraction was building, and she could feel the baby pressing down, demanding to be born, whether the world was ready or not. Emma, I need you to get a blanket, a clean blanket for the baby. Emma ran again, came back with the softest blanket they owned, a gift from Martha 2 weeks ago. Is this okay? That's perfect. Now I need you to hold your mommy's hand. Can you do that? Emma knelt beside Jessica, took her hand squeezed tight. I'm here, Mommy. I'm not going anywhere. Jessica looked at her daughter through tears. 4 years old, watching her mother give birth on the floor of a cabin during a blizzard. This was not how it was supposed to be. None of this was how it was supposed to be. I love you, Emma. I love you too, Mommy. Is the baby coming now? Yes, baby. The baby is coming now. Martha's voice guided her through the next 45 minutes. When to push, when to breathe, when to rest. Frank stayed on the line too, his voice a steady anchor while the storm raged outside and Jessica's body did what bodies had done for thousands of years. The pain was beyond anything she had ever experienced. Beyond the grief of losing Daniel. Beyond the humiliation of being thrown away by his family. This was primal, ancient, a transformation that could not be stopped or controlled. I can see the head, Emma said suddenly. Mommy, I can see the baby's head. Don't look, sweetheart, don't. It's okay. Emma's voice was eerily calm. The baby has dark hair, like Daddy's. Jessica sobbed, pushed, felt something shift inside her. One more push, Martha said. One more, Jessica. You can do this. She pushed with everything she had. Everything she had been through. Every night crying in the Morrison kitchen. Every dollar carefully saved. Every moment of being told she was worthless. She pushed all of it out of her body and into the world. The baby slipped free. Silence. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, then a cry. Thin and reedy at first, then stronger. The most beautiful sound Jessica had ever heard. She's crying, Emma said. Mommy, the baby is crying. Is that good? That's good, baby. That's so good. Jessica reached down with shaking hands, lifted her newborn daughter onto her chest. The baby was small, so small, covered in blood and Vernix's eyes squeezed shut, fists clenched against the cold. Hello, Jessica whispered. Hello, little one. I'm your mommy. The baby opened her eyes. Dark like Daniel's, like Emma's, like Jessica's own. What are you going to name her? Emma asked. Jessica looked at her daughter, thought about everything she had survived to reach this moment. The garbage bags, the $67, the cabin that should have been condemned, the storm that had revealed secrets, the labor that had brought new life. Hope, she said. Her name is Hope. The mountain rescue team arrived 40 minutes later. 3 men and a woman covered in snow carrying medical equipment and warmth. Mrs. Harper. The lead paramedic knelt beside her. I'm James. We're going to take you and the baby to the hospital. Can you tell me how you're feeling? Tired? So tired. That's normal. You did amazing. Delivering a baby alone in these conditions? He shook his head. Most people couldn't have done what you did. I wasn't alone. Jessica looked at Emma, who had fallen asleep curled against her side, exhausted from being brave. My daughter helped me. They loaded Jessica and Hope onto a stretcher, wrapped them in thermal blankets. Emma rode in the rescue vehicle holding her mother's hand the whole way. At 4:47 a.m., they reached the hospital. Hope was taken to the NICU for observation, 6 weeks premature, but breathing on her own, crying strong, vitals stable. She's a fighter, the doctor said, just like her mother. Jessica slept for the first time in what felt like years, deep, dreamless sleep. When she woke, the sun was streaming through hospital windows and Frank was sitting beside her bed. What time is it? Just past noon? The custody hearing. Jessica sat up too fast, head spinning. It was at 9. I missed it. Margaret. Slow down? Frank's hand on her shoulder, gentle but firm. Sarah called the court this morning. Explain the situation. Emergency childbirth? Medical necessity. The judge postponed the hearing until January 15th. Jessica felt tears streaming down her face. I didn't lose Emma. You didn't lose anyone. You gained someone. Frank smiled. Hope is beautiful, by the way. Emma's been in the NICU all morning talking to her sister through the glass. I need to see her. You need to rest. I need to see my daughter. Frank helped her into a wheelchair, pushed her to the NICU. Through the window, Jessica could see Hope in her incubator, tiny and perfect. Emma stood with her face pressed against the glass, talking nonstop. And then you're going to meet our cabin, and Miss Martha makes really good cookies, and there's snow everywhere, but it's pretty snow, not scary snow, and Mommy says we're going to be okay, and I believe her because Mommy never lies. Jessica watched her daughters through the glass. One she had raised for 4 years. One she had met just hours ago. Both of them hers. Both of them safe. Mrs. Harper, a nurse approached with paperwork. Birth certificate forms. Jessica filled them out with a pen that shook in her hand. Name, Hope Daniel Harper. Middle name for the father who would never see her, who would never know how much his family had tried to destroy what he left behind. The birth certificate, Jessica said suddenly. It proves Hope was conceived before Daniel died. The timing Margaret accused me of cheating, of carrying another man's child. We can request a paternity test if needed, Aki, the nurse said, but the conception date is right there. 40 weeks from conception to due date minus the 6 weeks premature. That puts conception in early March of last year. Daniel died in February. Then this baby was definitely conceived before his death. Jessica felt something loosen in her chest. Proof. Medical proof that Margaret's accusations were lies. But there was something else she needed to deal with. Something sitting on her kitchen table in a cabin 20 miles away. Frank, the things I found last night, the gold coins, the papers, I need to know if they're real. Frank's expression shifted. I saw them when the rescue team went in. Didn't touch anything, but I saw. He paused. Your grandfather talked about those papers sometimes. Near the end, when his mind was going, he'd say things. Look where the storm reveals what time hides. I thought it was dementia, ramblings. Never imagined. Never imagined what? That he actually found something. All those years of searching all those maps and surveys. Everyone thought he died poor. Everyone thought the gold was a fantasy. What if it wasn't? Frank was quiet for a long moment. Then you need a lawyer, a real one. Someone who understands corporate securities and stock transfers. I already have a lawyer. Sarah Chen. Sarah does family law. This is different. This is... He stopped. This could be millions of dollars, Jessica, if those shares are still valid. Millions of dollars. The words felt impossible. 48 hours ago, she'd been counting $67 on a sidewalk. Now she might be heir to a fortune, but first she had a custody battle to win. The hospital kept Jessica and Hope for 5 days. Observation, recovery, making sure the premature baby could breathe and eat and thrive. Emma stayed with Frank and Martha, visited every day, brought drawings she'd made for her new sister, talked about school and snow and the cookies Martha taught her to bake. Mommy, when are we going home? Soon, sweetheart, a few more days. Is Grandma Margaret still trying to take me? The question hit Jessica like a punch. How do you know about that? I heard Miss Sarah talking on the phone. She said Grandma Margaret wants custody. That means she wants me to live with her, right? Jessica pulled Emma onto the hospital bed, held her close. Yes, baby, that's what it means. I don't want to live with her. I know. She was mean to you. She hit you. I saw it. You remember that. I remember everything. Emma's voice was small but fierce. She said you weren't family. She said I was a Morrison, not a Harper, but I'm both right. I'm Emma Harper Morrison. You're whoever you want to be, sweetheart. I want to be Emma Harper, like you, like Hope. Jessica felt tears threatening again. 4 years old, and her daughter was already choosing sides, already understanding that family wasn't about blood or names, but about who showed up when things got hard. Whatever you want, baby, whatever you want. On December 1st, Jessica brought Hope home to the cabin. Frank had been busy while she was gone. New insulation, a proper crib borrowed from a neighbor, space heaters running off a generator he'd found somewhere. The cabin was warmer than it had ever been, and on the kitchen table in a locked box Frank had provided sat the contents of her grandfather's hidden room. I called a friend in Denver, Frank said, helping Jessica settle Hope into the crib. Securities attorney, name's Rebecca Chen, Sarah's older sister, actually. She specializes in exactly this kind of thing. Old stocks, dormant shares, company mergers. When can she come? She's driving up tomorrow. Jessica looked at the locked box, at the fortune it might or might not contain. Frank, what if the shares are worthless? What if this is all just paper? Then you're no worse off than you were before. You've got a job, a home, 2 beautiful daughters. That's more than a lot of people have. And if they're worth something, Frank's eyes met hers, then you make sure you use it wisely. Your grandfather spent his whole life searching for that fortune. He hid it instead of spending it. There had to be a reason. Rebecca Chen arrived the next morning in a BMW that looked wildly out of place on the dirt road. 45 years old, sharp eyes, sharper suit. She carried a briefcase that probably cost more than Jessica's monthly salary. Miss Harper, I've heard a lot about you from my sister. Good things, I hope. Impressive things. Single mother, 2 children fighting the Morrison family for custody while building a life from nothing. Sarah admires you. I'm just trying to survive. Sometimes survival is the most impressive thing of all. Rebecca sat at the kitchen table, opened her briefcase. Now, let's see what your grandfather left you. Jessica unlocked the box, spread the contents across the table. Gold coins, stock certificates, the leather-bound ledger, the envelope she still hadn't opened. Rebecca examined each item with professional precision, took photos, made notes, spent 20 minutes with the stock certificates alone. Rocky Mountain Mineral Consortium, she murmured. 1948 through 1965, 90,000 shares total. She pulled out her laptop, began typing. The merger history is complicated. RMMC became RMS Mining in 1970. RMS merged with Copper Valley in 1991 to form Continental Resources. Continental restructured as Summit Mining Holdings in 2017. So the shares are worthless. Phew. I didn't say that, Rebecca kept typing. Each merger had conversion ratios. If the shares transferred properly through each transition, more typing, more calculations. Your 90,000 shares of RMMC would have become 108,000 shares of RMS, which would have become 91,800 shares of Continental, which would have become 137,700 shares of Summit Mining Holdings. 137,000 shares, Jessica repeated, of a company worth $890 million. Rebecca looked up from her laptop. Summit has approximately 520,000 total shares outstanding. Your 137,000 shares represent 26.5% ownership. Jessica's vision tunneled. 26.5% of $890 million, $235 million, give or take. The number hung in the air. Impossible. Incomprehensible. More money than Jessica could spend in 100 lifetimes. That can't be right. The math is straightforward. The question is whether the shares are still valid. Rebecca's expression turned serious. Summit's 2017 restructuring required shareholders to re-register within 180 days. Your grandfather died in 2010. He couldn't have responded to any notification. So the shares are gone. Not necessarily. Corporate law requires companies to make reasonable efforts to notify all shareholders of major actions. If Summit failed to properly notify your grandfather's estate if they violated their own bylaws, the shares might still be legally valid. How do we find out? We contact Summit Mining Holdings, request verification of the share history, see how they respond. Rebecca began packing her briefcase. I should warn you, if these shares are legitimate, Summit won't want to honor them. $235 million is a lot of money to hand over. They'll fight. I've been fighting my whole life. I can fight a little longer. Rebecca smiled. Sarah said you'd say something like that. She handed Jessica a business card. I'll draft a letter to Summit this week. Formal notification of your claim. We'll see what happens. The letter went out on December 5th. Summit's response arrived December 12th, 3 days before the rescheduled custody hearing. Jessica sat at the kitchen table, Hope sleeping in her arms, Emma playing nearby, and read the letter that could change everything. Dear Miss Harper, we are in receipt of your correspondence regarding shares allegedly held by Robert Harper in Rocky Mountain Mineral Consortium. After thorough review of our records, we find no evidence that these shares were properly transferred through subsequent corporate restructurings. Furthermore, the 2017 restructuring required all shareholders to re-register within 180 days. No response was received for the account in question. The shares were therefore forfeited to the company per Montana corporate law. We consider this matter closed. However, as a gesture of goodwill, we are prepared to offer $8,000 for the physical certificates as historical collectibles. $8,000 for $235 million worth of shares. Jessica called Rebecca. They're trying to steal it. They're trying to lowball you. It's a common tactic. Make an insulting offer, hope you're too desperate or ignorant to fight back. I'm not ignorant, and I'm definitely not giving up. Good, because I did some more research. Rebecca's voice carried an edge of excitement. Summit sent re-registration notices to 289 shareholders in 2017, but their own records from 2016 show 368 registered shareholders. 79 accounts received no notice. Your grandfather was one of them. They deliberately didn't notify some shareholders. It appears so. All 79 accounts were dormant, no trading activity in years. After the restructuring, Summit's executives purchased those abandoned shares for pennies on the dollar. That's fraud. That's exactly what it is. And if I can prove it, Summit Mining is looking at criminal charges, massive civil liability, and complete destruction of their current management. What do you need? Time. Documentation. and for you to not accept any settlement offers without consulting me first. Done. December 15th arrived cold and clear. The storm had passed. The roads were plowed. And Jessica Harper walked into the county courthouse ready to fight for her daughter. Margaret Morrison sat on the opposite side of the courtroom. Designer suit, perfect hair, expression of utter contempt. Kevin and Rachel flanked her. The same formation they'd used the night they threw Jessica out. Tribunal reassembled for round 2. All rise, the Honorable Judge Patricia Hernandez presiding. The judge was 60-something gray-haired with eyes that had seen every trick families could play on each other. She reviewed the case files while both lawyers stood waiting. Mrs. Morrison, you're alleging parental abandonment and unfitness. Miss Harper, you're contesting, is that correct? Yes, Your Honor, both attorneys said simultaneously. Let's hear it then. Mrs. Morrison, your attorney may proceed. Margaret's lawyer, a man named Reynolds who probably charged $500 an hour, stood with practiced confidence. Your Honor, my client has been a pillar of the Morrison family for 40 years. When her son Daniel died, she opened her home to his widow and child. For 18 months, she provided food shelter and financial support. In return, Miss Harper abandoned the household to hold without notice, taking Emma Harper Morrison to an uninhabitable property in the mountains. She has since given birth to another child, further straining her ability to provide adequate care. We believe Emma's best interests lie with the Morrison family. Judge Hernandez turned to Sarah Chen. Miss Chen. Sarah stood. Your Honor, my client didn't abandon the Morrison household. She was forcibly evicted. Mrs. Morrison struck my client across the face, then gave her 10 minutes to leave. This occurred on November 4th at approximately 6:20 a.m. My client was 7 months pregnant. The temperature that night dropped to 18 degrees. That's a lie. Margaret shot to her feet. I never... Mrs. Morrison, sit down. Judge Hernandez's voice was iron. You'll have your chance to speak. Your Honor, Sarah continued, my client has documentation of her contributions to the Morrison household. Rent payments totaling $14,400 over 18 months. Work schedules showing 60-hour weeks while also providing care for Mrs. Morrison's father. Medical records showing consistent prenatal care. And most importantly, we have a witness to the assault. What witnessed from Emma Harper Morrison, 4 years old? She saw her grandmother strike her mother. The courtroom went silent. Margaret's face drained of color. You're going to put a 4-year-old on the stand, Reynolds sounded outraged. If necessary, but I think Mrs. Morrison might prefer to settle this matter without her granddaughter testifying about being told that her mother wasn't family, about watching her grandmother hit a pregnant woman, about being offered the chance to stay while her mother was thrown into the snow. Judge Hernandez leaned forward. Mrs. Morrison, is there any truth to these allegations? Margaret's lawyer whispered urgently in her ear. She shook her head, then shook it again, then finally spoke. It was a difficult time. Emotions were running high. Perhaps I said things I shouldn't have, but I never... Did you strike Miss Harper? Silence. Did you offer to keep Emma while forcing her pregnant mother to leave? More silence. Mrs. Morrison, I'm going to ask you one more time. Did you strike the plaintiff? Margaret's chin lifted. The defiance of a woman who had never been held accountable for anything. She was disrespectful. She came home late. That's a yes. Judge Hernandez made a note. Did you offer to separate a mother from her child? Emma is my granddaughter. I have rights. That's also a yes. Another note. Mr. Reynolds, is there anything else you'd like to add before I make my ruling? Reynolds looked at his client, at the case crumbling around them. Your Honor, perhaps we could discuss a settlement. Visitation rights for Mrs. Morrison, supervised if necessary. I'm not interested in settlement. Judge Hernandez's voice cut like a blade. I've seen enough. Miss Harper, please stand. Jessica rose on legs that trembled. Based on the evidence presented, I find that you acted in the best interest of your children when you left the Morrison household. No parent should be forced to choose between their child and their safety. The petition for custody transfer is denied. Emma Harper Morrison will remain in the sole custody of Jessica Harper. Margaret made a sound, something between a gasp and a scream. Furthermore, I'm issuing a restraining order. Mrs. Morrison is to have no contact with Miss Harper or her children without prior written consent. Any violation will result in criminal charges. You can't do this. Margaret lunged to her feet. That woman stole my son. She stole my grandchild. One more word and I'll hold you in contempt. Judge Hernandez's gavel cracked. This hearing is adjourned. Jessica walked out of the courthouse into winter sunlight. Sarah Chen beside her, Emma's hand in hers, hope bundled in a carrier against her chest. They had won. Against all odds, against the Morrison money and the Morrison lawyers and the Morrison cruelty, they had won. "Mommy, are we going home now?" Jessica looked at her daughter, at the courthouse behind them, at the future spreading out ahead. "Yes, baby, we're going home." But the fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. 3 days after the custody victory, Rebecca Chen called with news that changed everything. "I found documentation of Summit's 2017 notification process. They deliberately excluded dormant accounts from the re-registration notices. Internal emails prove the executives knew exactly what they were doing. They planned to claim those shares as abandoned, then purchase them for themselves." How much did they steal, Humps? From all 79 accounts, combined approximately $400 million in current value, they paid less than $2 million. That's criminal. That's exactly what I told the SEC this morning. Jessica sat down hard. "You reported them." "I had to. This isn't just about your shares anymore. This is systematic fraud affecting dozens of families. The SEC has opened an investigation. Summit stock is frozen pending review, and their CEO, William Thornton, is very, very nervous." "How do you know?" "Because he called me an hour ago, wants to meet, says he's prepared to discuss a settlement for your specific claim." "Situ? What kind of settlement?" "He wouldn't say on the phone. But Jessica, when a man looking at criminal charges suddenly wants to talk settlement, he's ready to pay. The question is how much you're willing to accept." Jessica looked around her cabin, at Hope sleeping in the crib Frank had built, at Emma's drawings covering every wall, at the life she had built from nothing. "I want what's mine. Every share. Every dollar." "That could take years of litigation. Thornton knows that. He's counting on you being too tired, too poor, too desperate to fight." "Then he doesn't know me at all." The meeting was scheduled for December 20th, 5 days before Christmas. Summit Mining's headquarters in Denver, a glass tower that screamed money and power. Jessica wore the nicest clothes she owned, which wasn't saying much. Rebecca wore armor disguised as a designer suit. William Thornton met them in a conference room on the 47th floor. 63 years old, silver-haired. The kind of man who had never been told no in his life. His legal team flanked him like guards. "Miss Harper, thank you for coming." "Thank you for finally being willing to talk." Thornton's smile flickered. "I understand there's been some confusion regarding your grandfather's shares. I'd like to clear that up." "There's no confusion. My grandfather owned 90,000 shares of Rocky Mountain Mineral Consortium. Those shares converted through 3 mergers. I now own 137,000 shares of Summit Mining Holdings. You tried to steal them by deliberately failing to notify his estate of the 2017 restructuring. Those are serious allegations. They're supported by your own internal emails, which the SEC now has." Thornton's legal team shifted uncomfortably. The CEO's smile disappeared entirely. "What do you want, Miss Harper?" "Full recognition of my shares, all dividends owed since the 2017 restructuring, and a public acknowledgement that Summit Mining defrauded my grandfather's estate." "That's impossible. The publicity alone would destroy us." "Then I suppose we'll see you in court." Jessica stood. Rebecca gathered her briefcase. "Wait." Thornton's voice was sharp, desperate. "We can negotiate. $100 million, cash, transferred within 30 days. In exchange, you sign a non-disclosure agreement and release all claims. $100 million, more money than Jessica had ever imagined. More than enough to secure her children's futures forever. No. $120 million. No. $150 million. Thornton was sweating now. "That's my final offer. Take it or spend the next 5 years in court." Jessica turned back, looked at the man who had tried to steal her grandfather's legacy, who had defrauded 78 other families, who thought money could buy silence. "Here's my counteroffer, $185 million. You contact every family affected by your fraud and offer fair settlements. You resign as CEO, and you make a full public confession of what you did." "That's insane." "That's justice." Jessica walked to the door. "You have until Christmas to decide. After that, I'm filing a civil lawsuit and cooperating fully with the SEC investigation. Merry Christmas, Mr. Thornton." She walked out of the building into the December cold. Rebecca caught up to her at the car. "That was either brilliant or insane." "Which do you think?" I think you just scared the hell out of a man who's never been scared in his life. Rebecca smiled. I also think he's going to take your deal. His lawyers know they can't win. The evidence is too strong. The only question is how much it's going to cost him. Jessica looked up at the glass tower, at the empire built on stolen shares and corporate fraud. He tried to take what belonged to my family, just like Margaret Morrison tried to take my daughter. And I'm done letting people take things from me. Jessica opened the car door. Let's go home. My children are waiting. The call came at 11:47 p.m. on Christmas Eve. Jessica was wrapping presents, Hope asleep in the crib, Emma dreaming of Santa Claus. The phone rang with a Denver area code. Miss Harper, this is William Thornton. It's late, Mr. Thornton. I know, I've been thinking about your offer, about what happens if I refuse. And silence. Then I accept. All of it. The settlement, the resignations, the public statement, everything. Jessica sat down slowly. Why? Because I'm 63 years old. I have grandchildren. I don't want to spend my last years in prison. His voice cracked. I made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. Your grandfather's shares the other families. I told myself it was just business, that they'd never notice, that the money would never matter to people who had forgotten they owned it. It mattered to my grandfather. He spent his whole life searching for that gold. I know that now. Thornton took a shaky breath. My lawyers will contact yours tomorrow. We'll have documents ready by New Year's. I'm sorry, Miss Harper, for what that's worth. It's worth something. Not everything, but something. She hung up. Sat in the silence of her cabin, surrounded by Christmas decorations Emma had made from construction paper, listening to her children breathe. $185 million. Justice for her grandfather. Safety for her daughters. A future she couldn't have imagined $67 and 3 garbage bags ago. Jessica walked to the window. Snow was falling softly, covering the mountains in white. Somewhere out there, in a fancy Denver apartment, William Thornton was contemplating the destruction of everything he'd built. And somewhere else in a house Jessica would never enter again, Margaret Morrison was spending Christmas without the grandchildren she'd tried to steal. Mommy! Emma stood in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. What are you doing up, sweetheart? I heard the phone. Is everything okay? Jessica opened her arms. Emma ran to her, climbed into her lap, pressed her face against her mother's chest. Everything is better than okay, baby. Everything is wonderful. Did Santa call? Jessica laughed. The first real laugh she'd allowed herself in longer than she could remember. No, sweetheart, but someone else did. Someone who's going to help us have the best Christmas ever. Better than last year, Sobbed. Last Christmas they'd been in the Morrison house, treated like unwanted guests at their own family celebration, given token gifts while Kevin and Rachel received everything they wanted. Much better than last year. Much, much better. Emma yawned. Can we open presents early? Nice try. Back to bed. She carried her daughter back to the small bedroom they shared, tucked her in, kissed her forehead. Mommy. Yes, baby. I'm glad we came here. To the cabin. To the mountains. Me too, sweetheart. Even though it was scary at first. Sometimes the scariest things lead to the best places. Remember that, Emma? When life gets hard, when people are mean, when everything seems impossible, sometimes that's just the universe making room for something wonderful. Emma's eyes were closing. Like hope. Exactly like hope. Jessica turned off the light, walked back to the living room, picked up her phone and stared at the screen. $185 million. She thought about her grandfather, about the hidden room, about the letters she still hadn't opened. The envelope sat in the locked box with the gold coins and stock certificates. To my heir. Written in handwriting that had waited 40 years to be read. Jessica opened the box, removed the envelope, broke the seal. The letter inside was dated 1985, the same year as the final entry in the ledger. Dear Sarah, or whoever comes after, if you're reading this, you found what I hid. I built that wall because I learned that visible wealth makes you a target. My brother tried to claim half of everything because family shares, because blood, because he needed it more than I did. The courts disagreed, but lawyers don't work for free. By the time I defended what was mine, I'd spent $300,000 proving my right to keep it, so I hid what remained. Not from paranoia, but from experience. The shares might be worthless now, the company long dead. But if by some miracle the consortium survived, remember this. Money doesn't create character, it reveals it. Use what you find to build something that matters. Something that helps people who can't help themselves. That's the only inheritance worth leaving. Your grandfather, Robert. Jessica read the letter twice, 3 times, then folded it carefully and put it back in the envelope. Build something that matters. Help people who can't help themselves. She knew exactly what she was going to do with $185 million. Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside, her children slept peacefully. And somewhere in the darkness between Christmas Eve and Christmas morning, Jessica Harper made a promise to a grandfather she'd barely known and a future she was finally ready to build. The settlement documents arrived on New Year's Day. Jessica sat at the kitchen table with Hope sleeping in her arms, Emma playing with new toys on the floor, and 173 pages of legal language spread before her. Rebecca Chen's voice came through the phone speaker, patient and precise. Page 47 is the key section. Full recognition of your 137,000 shares. Current market valuation of $185 million. Wire transfer to occur within 14 business days of execution. And the other families. Thornton has agreed to contact all 78 affected accounts. Fair market valuations, no lowball offers. The SEC is monitoring compliance. Jessica turned to the section on Thornton's resignation. He's really stepping down. Effective January 15th, the board demanded it. Once the fraud became public, they had no choice. Rebecca paused. There's something else you should know. Margaret Morrison called my office this morning. Jessica's hand tightened on the phone. What did she want? To negotiate. She heard about the settlement. Said she wants to discuss Emma's trust fund. Claims Daniel's life insurance should be released now that you have other resources. Daniel's insurance has nothing to do with her. I know, I told her that. She threatened to file an appeal on the custody decision. On what grounds? Changed circumstances. She's arguing that your sudden wealth makes you a target for exploitation, that Emma would be safer with family who understands money. Jessica laughed and the sound was bitter. The woman who threw me out with $67 is worried about my ability to handle wealth. It's a desperate move. She knows she can't win, but she can make your life difficult for months, maybe years. Legal fees, court appearances, constant harassment disguised as concern for Emma. What do you recommend? Settle. Offer her something small, a trust fund for Emma's education that she has no control over. Enough to make her feel like she won something without actually giving her anything. That feels like letting her win. That feels like ending the war so you can focus on living your life. Rebecca's voice softened. You have 2 children, Jessica, a foundation to build, a future to create. Is Margaret Morrison really worth years of your energy? Jessica looked at Emma, 4 years old, playing happily without any idea that her grandmother was still trying to tear their family apart. Looked at Hope, 6 weeks old, sleeping peacefully, her whole life ahead of her. Set up a meeting. I'll hear what she has to say. January 8th, a conference room in Sarah Chen's office. Neutral territory. Margaret Morrison arrived in designer clothes and professional armor. Kevin and Rachel flanked her as always. The tribunal reassembled one final time. Jessica, Margaret's voice was controlled, almost pleasant. You're looking well. Cut the act, Margaret. What do you want? I want what's best for Emma, what's always been best for Emma. You wanted to take her away from me. I wanted to protect her from a mother who couldn't provide stability, from a life of poverty and uncertainty. Margaret leaned forward. That's changed now. You have resources, but you don't have experience. You don't know how to manage wealth, how to invest it, how to protect it. The Morrison family does. The Morrison family tried to steal Daniel's life insurance. We tried to protect it, for Emma, not for ourselves. You froze it in probate for 18 months while I worked double shifts to survive. Because we didn't trust you. Margaret's mask slipped just for a moment. You came from nothing, no family, no connections, no money. You trapped Daniel with a pregnancy and then played grieving widow while living off our generosity. I loved Daniel. You loved what Daniel could give you. Jessica felt the old rage building, the humiliation of being called a gold digger, the fury of being thrown away like garbage, the pain of watching her daughter ask why Grandma didn't love them anymore. But she didn't let it control her. Not this time. Here's what's going to happen, Margaret. I'm going to establish a trust fund for Emma. $2 million. It will pay for her education, her first home, her future. She'll have access when she turns 25, not before. $2 million, you have $185 million, and it's mine. Not yours, not Kevin's, not Rachel's, mine. Because my grandfather earned it. Because my grandfather hid it. Because I found it when I was desperate enough to search. You got lucky. I survived. There's a difference. Jessica stood. The trust fund is my final offer. Take it or leave it. But understand this, Margaret. If you file another custody appeal, if you try to take Emma again, if you come anywhere near my children without my permission, I will spend every dollar I have making sure you regret it. You can't threaten me. I'm not threatening, I'm promising. Jessica walked to the door. You have 48 hours to decide. After that, the offer disappears. She walked out without looking back. Margaret accepted the offer on January 10th. $2 million in trust for Emma. Complete release of all claims. Permanent end to custody disputes. Jessica signed the papers with a hand that didn't shake. Watched Margaret sign with barely controlled fury. Saw Kevin and Rachel watching their mother lose, saw the resentment in their eyes, and didn't care. This isn't over, Margaret hissed as they left. Yes, it is. Jessica met her eyes one final time. You threw me out with $67 and 3 garbage bags. You tried to take my daughter. You accused me of cheating on your dead son. And now you're walking away with $2 million you don't deserve. That's more than generous. That's more than fair. That's the last thing you'll ever get from me. The Morrison family disappeared. Through the door. Out of Jessica's life. Out of her children's futures. Gone finally and forever. January 15th. The money arrived. Jessica was feeding hope when her phone buzzed with a notification from the bank. She almost dropped the bottle when she saw the number. $185 million. Deposited in her account. Sitting there like it was normal. Like anyone could have that much money just waiting to be spent. She called Rebecca immediately. Is this real? It's real. Thornton's resigned. The board's approved the transfer. The SEC has closed their preliminary investigation pending full audit. You're officially one of the wealthiest women in Colorado. I don't feel wealthy. I feel terrified. That's a healthy reaction. Most people who come into sudden money feel the same way. The question is what you do with that fear. Jessica looked around her cabin. The wood stove Frank had helped her rebuild. The crib he'd built for Hope. The drawings Emma had made covering every wall. I know exactly what I'm going to do. The Robert Harper Foundation was incorporated on February 1st. Jessica worked with lawyers, accountants, and nonprofit specialists to create something that would outlast her lifetime. An organization dedicated to one purpose, helping homeless families rebuild their lives. The initial endowment is $30 million. Jessica explained to her board of directors, a group that included Frank, Martha, Rebecca, and 3 nonprofit veterans she'd recruited from Denver. That should generate approximately $2 million in annual investment income. We'll use that to fund programs, build reserves, and expand over time. What kind of programs? Frank asked. Emergency housing, legal aid, job training, childcare support, everything I needed when Margaret threw me out. Jessica's voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly. I counted $67 on a sidewalk and wondered how I was going to keep my daughter alive. No one should have to feel that way. No mother should have to choose between her children and a roof over their heads. The board approved her vision unanimously. By March, the foundation had helped its first family. A woman named Maria, 34 years old, 2 children escaping an abusive husband who had drained their bank accounts and destroyed her credit. Jessica met her personally in the foundation's new office, a converted barn on her property that Frank had spent 2 months transforming. I don't understand, Maria said, hands clutching a cup of coffee like it might disappear. You're just going to pay my deposit, my first month's rent. Why? Because someone should have helped me when I needed it. Because no one did. Because I promised myself if I ever had the chance, I would be that help for someone else. But you don't know me. I know what it feels like to be terrified, to count money that isn't enough, to wonder how you're going to feed your children tomorrow. Jessica reached across the table, took Maria's shaking hands in hers. You're not alone anymore. That's what this foundation means. You're not alone. Maria started crying, deep racking sobs that seemed to release months of held-in fear. Jessica held her. Let her cry. Remembered doing the same thing in Rose's diner when Frank and Martha showed her unexpected kindness. The cycle continued. The help passed forward. April brought spring to the mountains, and with it, unexpected visitors. Jessica was planting flowers with Emma when a car pulled up the driveway. Expensive. Black, the kind of car that didn't belong on dirt roads. A woman stepped out. 50s professional attire, sharp eyes that assessed everything. Jessica Harper. Who's asking? My name is Diana Thornton, William Thornton's wife. Jessica felt her whole body tense. What do you want? To apologize. Diana's voice cracked slightly. For what my husband did. For what he tried to do. I didn't know about the fraud until the SEC investigation began. I didn't know about any of it. That's convenient. It's the truth. Diana took a step forward. William destroyed our family trying to protect it. 38 years of marriage, 3 children, 7 grandchildren, and now he's facing federal charges because he couldn't accept that he had enough. That we had enough. I'm supposed to feel sorry for you. No, you're supposed to understand that not everyone in that company knew what was happening, that some of us are victims too. Diana pulled an envelope from her purse. This is from the other families, the 78 accounts that were defrauded. We formed a group. We want to thank you. Jessica took the envelope, opened it. Inside were letters. Dozens of letters, handwritten, typed, scrawled on notebook paper, and printed on expensive stationery. Dear Miss Harper, thank you for fighting. My mother never knew she owned those shares. She died thinking she had nothing to leave us. Because of you, her grandchildren will have college funds. Dear Miss Harper, my father was a miner for 40 years. He invested everything in that company. Your grandfather was his friend. They believed in the same dream? Thank you for not letting that dream die. Dear Miss Harper, I'm 92 years old. I remember Robert Harper. He was a good man. He would be proud of what you've done. Jessica felt tears streaming down her face. She didn't try to stop them. They wanted you to know, Diana said softly, that what you did mattered, not just for yourself, for all of them. Why are you really here? Diana was quiet for a long moment. Because I have grandchildren Emma's age. Because I think about what would have happened if someone had done to me what my husband did to you. Because I can't undo what William did, but I can acknowledge it. I can say I'm sorry, even if it doesn't change anything. Jessica looked at this woman, wife of the man who had tried to steal her inheritance, mother of children who would grow up with a father in prison, grandmother who would have to explain someday why their family name became synonymous with fraud. Thank you for the letters. Thank you for coming. Does that mean you forgive us? It means I'm trying to. Jessica folded the letters carefully. Forgiveness takes time, but holding on to anger takes energy I need for other things. For my children, for the foundation, for building something that matters. Diana nodded slowly. If there's ever anything I can do, anything to help with the foundation with the other families, anything at all, I'll keep that in mind. The expensive black car drove away. Emma ran up dirt on her hands and flowers in her hair. Who was that mommy? Someone saying sorry. Did they do something bad? Her husband did, but sometimes people who love bad people still have good hearts. Jessica lifted her daughter, held her close. It's complicated, baby. You'll understand when you're older. Like why Grandma Margaret was mean. Exactly like that. Summer arrived hot and bright. The foundation expanded, hired staff, helped more families, built a reputation. Jessica was in her office reviewing grant applications when her phone rang, a number she didn't recognize. Miss Harper, this is Detective Rodriguez with the Denver Police Department. I'm calling about a matter involving Margaret Morrison. Jessica's blood went cold. What kind of matter? Mrs. Morrison was arrested this morning for attempted fraud. She tried to access Emma's trust fund using forged documents. The bank flagged the transaction and contacted us. Jessica sat down hard. She tried to steal from her own granddaughter. It appears so. We have her in custody. She's requesting to speak with you. Absolutely not. I understand, but there's something else. During the arrest, Mrs. Morrison made statements suggesting she's been in contact with William Thornton. We believe she may have been planning something larger, something involving your personal accounts. Jessica felt the room spinning. After everything, after the settlement, after the custody victory, after she'd given Margaret $2 million to go away, the woman was still trying to destroy her. What do I need to do, Heck? Review your accounts, all of them. Check for any unusual activity, and consider upgrading your security. Mrs. Morrison seems determined. Determined. That was one word for it. Obsessed was another. Jessica called Rebecca immediately, then Sarah, then her bank, then her accountant. Spent 4 hours reviewing every account, every transaction, every possible vulnerability. She didn't get anything, Rebecca confirmed that evening, The forged documents were amateur work. The bank caught them immediately. But Jessica, this woman is dangerous. She's not going to stop. What can I do? Press charges, full prosecution. Make it clear that any future attempts will be met with maximum legal consequences. She's Emma's grandmother. She's a criminal who tried to steal from her own grandchild. Emma doesn't need that kind of grandmother. Jessica thought about it all night. Thought about forgiveness and anger and the endless cycle of Morrison cruelty. Thought about what she would tell Emma someday. Thought about the kind of person she wanted to be. In the morning, she made her decision. Full prosecution, no mercy. Margaret Morrison was convicted in August. 5 years federal prison for attempted fraud conspiracy and violation of the restraining order. Kevin was implicated as an accessory and received 2 years probation. Jessica didn't attend the sentencing. Didn't want to see Margaret's face. Didn't want to give her the satisfaction of knowing she still had power to command attention. Instead, she spent that day with her daughters. Took Emma to the park. Sat in the grass with Hope watching her 6-month-old daughter discover the world. Mommy, is Grandma Margaret going to jail? Emma 5 now was old enough to understand that something had happened, old enough to ask questions that had no good answers. Yes, sweetheart, she did something very bad and now she has to face consequences. Will she ever come back? Not for a long time. Good. Emma's voice was firm, final. The voice of a child who had learned too young that blood didn't equal love. She was mean. Mean people should go away. Sometimes they do, baby. Sometimes justice actually happens. What's justice? Jessica thought about the question. About $67 in garbage bags. About hidden rooms and gold coins. About fraud and forgiveness and the long, hard road from nothing to something. Justice is when the world gets a little bit more fair. When bad things happen to people who do bad things and good things happen to people who try to do good things. Like us. Like us. Fall brought changes. Hope learned to crawl. Emma started kindergarten. The foundation helped its 100th family. Frank and Martha came for dinner every Sunday. Rose from the diner visited monthly, always bringing pie and stories about customers who asked after that Harper woman who used to work breakfast shift. They don't believe it, you know, Rose said one evening, sipping coffee at Jessica's kitchen table. That you're the same person. The pregnant woman who walked in desperate for work is now running a foundation that's been in the news. I'm the same person. No, honey, you're not. You're stronger, harder in some ways, softer in others. Money changes people. My grandfather said it reveals them. Smart man. Rose set down her coffee. I've been meaning to tell you something. About Robert. About why I gave you that job without hesitation. Jessica leaned forward. What do you mean? He came into my diner once, 1997. I was new in town, just opened the place, struggling to make rent. He sat at the counter, ordered coffee, and listened to me complain about supply costs and loan payments for 2 hours. That sounds like him. When he left, he paid for the coffee with a $100 bill. Told me to keep the change. Said he remembered what it was like to be young and scared and trying to build something from nothing. He never mentioned that. He never mentioned a lot of things. That's what I learned about Robert Harper. He helped people quietly, without credit, without expectation. Just helped. Rose's eyes met Jessica's. You're a lot like him, more than you probably know. Jessica felt tears threatening, swallowed them back. Thank you for telling me that. Thank you for proving his faith was justified. December came quickly. A year since the storm that had changed everything. Jessica stood in the basement looking at the hidden room through the glass wall Frank had helped her install. A memorial now. A reminder of what desperation could reveal. The safe sat empty. The gold coins were in a secure vault, preserved as family heirlooms. The stock certificates were framed and hanging in the foundation's office, testament to a dream that had taken 70 years to bear fruit. Mommy, Emma's voice from upstairs. Hope is crying. Coming, sweetheart. Jessica climbed the stairs, leaving the past behind. Picked up her 1-year-old daughter, felt Hope's arms wrap around her neck, felt the weight of responsibility and love that came with motherhood. What's wrong, little one? Hope babbled something incomprehensible, pointed at the window. Outside, snow was beginning to fall, the first snow of the season, earlier than expected. Snow, Jessica said. That's snow, baby. It's cold and white and beautiful. Emma ran to the window. Can we play in it? Not yet. It has to stick first. When will it stick? Tonight, probably. If we're lucky, there'll be enough to build a snowman tomorrow. Emma pressed her face against the glass. I like snow now. I didn't used to. Last year it was scary, but now it means we found our home. Jessica held both her daughters and watched the snow fall. Remembered standing in a blizzard 1 year ago, about to give birth on the floor of a cabin she thought might kill them. Remembered the terror, the desperation, the absolute certainty that she had reached the end of everything, and then the beginning. This is our home, she said softly. This will always be our home. The phone rang. Rebecca's number. Jessica, I have news. The SEC has finalized their audit of Summit Mining. 53 executives are facing charges. The company is being restructured under new management, and there's something else. What? They want to name a scholarship fund after your grandfather, the Robert Harper Foundation for Mining Engineering, fully funded by Summit Mining as part of their restitution agreement. It will support students from low-income families pursuing careers in geological engineering. Jessica felt something break open in her chest, something that had been waiting to be released. My grandfather spent his whole life chasing gold that people said didn't exist. Now his name will help future generations chase their own dreams. I think he'd like that. I think he would too. After hanging up, Jessica sat in the chair by the wood stove, the same chair where she'd sat 1 year ago, exhausted and terrified, as counting the gold coins her grandfather had hidden away. The same chair where she'd read his letter about building something that matters. Build something that matters. She had. She was. She would continue. Emma climbed onto her lap. Hope reached for her from the playpen. The fire crackled. The snow fell. And Jessica Harper, 31 years old, mother of 2, founder of a foundation that had already helped hundreds of families, felt something she'd almost forgotten how to feel. Peace. Not the absence of problems, not the end of challenges, but the deep, quiet certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be, doing exactly what she was meant to do. Mommy, Emma's voice was sleepy, can you tell me about Great-Grandpa Robert again? What do you want to know? Why did he hide the gold? Because he learned that some people will try to take what's yours if they know you have it. He hid the gold so that only someone who really needed it would find it. Like you? Like me. Was he magic? Jessica smiled. No, sweetheart. He was just a man who understood that the most important things in life aren't gold or money. They're family, love, the willingness to help others even when it costs you something. Is that why you help families at the foundation? That's exactly why. Emma yawned. I want to help too, when I'm bigger. You will, baby. You'll help more people than you can imagine. Promise? I promise. Emma fell asleep in her arms. Hope drifted off in the playpen. The snow kept falling, covering the mountains in white, erasing the marks of the year that had passed. Jessica sat in the firelight holding her daughter, listening to her children breathe, and made one final promise to herself. She would never forget where she came from, never forget the $67, never forget the garbage bags and the cold and the terror of having nothing, never let wealth change who she was or what she valued. Because her grandfather was right. Money didn't create character. It revealed it. And Jessica Harper knew exactly who she was. A mother, a survivor, a woman who had been broken and rebuilt herself stronger. A woman who would spend the rest of her life making sure that others had the same chance. The fire burned low, the snow piled high. And somewhere in the darkness between 1 year ending and another beginning, Jessica closed her eyes and let herself rest. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new chances to build something that mattered. But tonight, she was home. She was safe. She was loved. And that was enough. That was everything. 3 years passed like water through open hands. Jessica marked time not in calendars, but in milestones. Hope's first steps across the kitchen floor, Emma's first day of real school, the foundation's 1,000th family helped, the cabin's complete renovation, the moment she stopped checking her bank account every morning, finally trusting that the money was real and would stay. The nightmares faded slowly. For the first 2 years, she woke at least once a week, drenched in sweat, heart pounding, certain that Margaret Morrison was standing over her bed, certain that the money had vanished, certain that she was back on that sidewalk counting $67, watching her breath fog in the cold. Dr. Patricia Reyes, the therapist Rebecca had recommended, called it post-traumatic stress. Jessica called it the price of survival. You experienced profound betrayal from people who should have protected you, Dr. Reyes said during their Wednesday session. Your nervous system learned that safety is temporary, that love comes with conditions, that family can become enemy without warning. So how do I unlearn it? Slowly, patiently, by building new experiences that contradict the old patterns. Jessica thought about Frank and Martha, who came for dinner every Sunday without fail. About Rose, who still saved her a booth at the diner, even though Jessica hadn't worked there in 3 years. About the community that had embraced her when she had nothing that continued to embrace her now that she had everything. I have good people in my life. Then let them in. Let them prove that not everyone leaves, not everyone betrays, not everyone has a price. Emma turned 8 on a Thursday in March. Jessica threw a party at the cabin, invited her entire class, watched her daughter run through the yard with friends who had no idea that Emma's mother was one of the wealthiest women in Colorado. "Mommy, this is the best birthday ever. Better than last year. Way better. Last year we only had 6 kids. This year we have 14. Quality over quantity, sweetheart." What does that mean? It means sometimes 6 real friends are worth more than 100 pretend ones. Emma considered this with the seriousness she brought to everything. "I think all my friends are real. They like me because I share my snacks, and I'm good at soccer, not because of anything else." Jessica felt her heart crack open. Her daughter didn't know about the money, didn't know that her trust fund could buy a small country, didn't know that her mother had gone from counting quarters to managing millions. That was deliberate. That was protection. That was Jessica trying to give Emma the childhood she deserved, free from the weight of wealth and the expectations that came with it. But someday Emma would find out. Someday the truth would emerge. And Jessica had no idea how to prepare her for that moment. "Mrs. Harper?" One of the parents approached, coffee cup in hand, the kind of casual smile that usually preceded awkward questions. "Please call me Jessica." "Jessica, I'm Sarah Mitchell, Olivia's mom." She gestured toward a girl with red braids who was currently trying to climb a tree. "I wanted to thank you for including her. She's been having trouble making friends since we moved here." Emma mentioned her, said she was shy but really good at drawing. "Sorry, that's Olivia." Sarah's smile softened. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Depends on the question." "How do you do it? Single mom, 2 kids, running a foundation, managing everything. I'm drowning with 1 child and a husband, and you seem so together?" Jessica laughed, and the sound surprised her. "I'm not together. I'm held together with coffee and stubbornness and a support system I don't deserve. But you make it look easy." "Nothing about this is easy. I just learned to stop pretending it should be." Jessica watched Emma organize a game of tag, her daughter's natural leadership emerging. "The secret is accepting help, asking for it when you need it, admitting that you can't do everything alone." "I'm terrible at that." "So was I. Then I hit rock bottom and discovered that the only way up was through other people's hands reaching down." Sarah studied her with new curiosity.
Wait, what that?
"You hit rock bottom, you. 3 years ago, I had $67 and 2 garbage bags. My husband's family threw me out while I was 7 months pregnant. I ended up in an abandoned cabin with no power, no water, and no idea how I was going to survive. My God, I had no idea. Most people don't, and that's okay. The past doesn't define us. What we do with it does." The party ended at 5. Jessica cleaned up while Emma and Hope played in the yard, watching the sun sink behind the mountains. Frank arrived to help with the heavy lifting, Martha following with containers for the leftover cake. "Good party," Frank said, hauling trash bags to the bin. "Emma's got her mother's talent for making people feel welcome. She's got her father's charm. Daniel could walk into a room of strangers and leave with 10 new friends." Frank paused. "You don't talk about him much." "It still hurts. Less than it did, but still." Jessica tied off another bag. Sometimes I wondered what he'd think of all this. The money, the foundation, the way his family tried to destroy us. He'd be proud of you." "You didn't know him. I know you, and any man who chose you must have been someone worth knowing." Jessica felt tears threatening, pushed them back. "Thank you, Frank, for everything, for 3 years of everything." "Thank your grandfather. I'm just paying forward what he gave me." That night, after the girls were asleep, Jessica sat on the porch watching stars emerge. The same porch where she'd stood 3 years ago, terrified and desperate, wondering if she'd made the worst mistake of her life. Now it was home. Really, truly home. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Mrs. Harper, this is Dr. James Chen, Rebecca's husband. I apologize for the late contact, but there's been a development regarding your grandfather's estate, something we missed during the initial settlement. Please call me at your earliest convenience." Jessica stared at the message. Her heart rate spiked. 3 years of peace, and now this. Something they missed. Something about her grandfather's estate. She called immediately. "Mrs. Harper, thank you for responding so quickly." "What's going on? What did you miss?" During the SEC audit of Summit Mining, investigators discovered additional documentation. It appears your grandfather owned shares in another company as well, a subsidiary that was spun off in 1983. We didn't find records of it because it operated under a different name. Another company, Cascade Mining Technologies. They hold patents on extraction methods used throughout the industry. Your grandfather was one of 4 founding investors. Jessica's hand tightened on the phone. "How much are we talking about?" "The current valuation is approximately $47 million. Your grandfather's share, based on the documentation we've recovered, would be roughly $12 million. $12 million. $12 million. On top of the $185 million, on top of everything she'd already received. This is insane. I understand it's overwhelming, but there's a complication. The other 3 founding investors have descendants who are also claiming shares. One of them is contesting your grandfather's ownership percentage. They're alleging that Robert Harper sold his stake in 1979 and has no legitimate claim. Did he sell to? We don't know. The documentation is incomplete. We need to investigate further." Jessica felt the old exhaustion creeping back. The legal battles, the contested claims, the endless fighting over money that should have been straightforward. Do what you need to do, but Dr. Chen, I'm not spending another 3 years in court. If the evidence supports my claim, fight for it. If it doesn't, let it go. Some things aren't worth the cost. Understood. I'll be in touch. She hung up, sat in the darkness, breathing slowly, trying to process yet another twist in a story that refused to end. $12 million. $47 million in dispute. 3 years of peace potentially shattered by another legal battle. "Mommy." Emma stood in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Who were you talking to?" "Just a work call, sweetheart. What are you doing up?" "I had a dream, a scary one." Jessica opened her arms. Emma ran to her, climbed onto her lap, pressed her face against her mother's chest. "What was the dream about? Grandma Margaret. She was trying to take me away again. She had a big car and she kept driving and I couldn't find you." Jessica held her daughter tight. 3 years and the trauma still surfaced in Emma's dreams. 3 years and Margaret Morrison still had power to terrify from a prison cell. "Grandma Margaret can't take you. She's far away and there are people making sure she stays there." "But what if she gets out?" "Then I'll protect you. I'll always protect you, no matter what." "Promise." "I promise, Emma. I promise on everything I have." They sat together on the porch, mother and daughter, watching stars wheel overhead. Eventually, Emma fell asleep again, heavy in Jessica's arms. Jessica carried her back to bed, tucked her in, kissed her forehead. In the hallway, she paused. Looked at Hope's room where her 3-year-old slept peacefully. Looked at the home they'd built together. Looked at everything she had to protect. $12 million more. Another legal battle. Another chapter in a story that kept writing itself. But she was stronger now. Tougher. Surrounded by people who would fight beside her. Whatever came next, she would face it. The way she'd faced everything else. One day at a time. The Cascade Mining Technologies case took 18 months to resolve. Dr. Chen and Rebecca worked tirelessly digging through archives and corporate records that stretched back 4 decades. The competing claim came from Harold Whitmore, son of one of the other founding investors, a man who had spent his inheritance on bad investments and was now desperate for more. "He's lying," Rebecca said during one of their monthly update calls. "The documentation clearly shows Robert Harper maintained his ownership. There's no record of any sale in 1979 or any other year." "Then why is this taking so long?" "Because Whitmore has lawyers willing to obstruct. They're filing motions demanding depositions, dragging everything out. They're hoping you'll settle just to make it stop." "I won't." "I know. That's why they're getting desperate." The breakthrough came in month 14. A storage unit in Denver, forgotten for 30 years, containing boxes of Robert Harper's personal papers. Among them a letter from Whitmore's father dated 1985 explicitly acknowledging Robert's continued ownership in Cascade Mining Technologies. "This is a smoking gun," Rebecca said, barely containing her excitement. "Whitmore's entire case rests on the claim that his father bought out Robert's shares. This letter proves he didn't. It's over." "You're sure?" "I'm sure." Whitmore's lawyers are already calling about settlement. They know they've lost. Jessica felt something release in her chest. 18 months of stress, of waiting, of wondering if the legal system would fail her again. "What kind of settlement?" Full recognition of your shares, no conditions, no ongoing disputes. The $12 million is yours. And Whitmore faces sanctions for filing a fraudulent claim. His lawyers are distancing themselves. He's going to be in debt for the rest of his life, paying legal fees for a case he never should have brought. Justice? Again, not perfect, but real. Thank you, Rebecca, for everything. Thank your grandfather. He kept better records than anyone realized. The money arrived 6 weeks later. $12 million deposited into accounts Jessica barely looked at anymore. She transferred $8 million to the foundation's endowment, kept $4 million for the girls' futures, and tried to remember that wealth was a tool, not a destination. Emma turned 10. Hope turned 5. The foundation helped its 3,000th family. And then on a Tuesday afternoon in September, a man walked into Jessica's life. His name was Michael Torres. 42 years old, widowed father of twin boys named Carlos and Diego. He ran a construction company that had partnered with the foundation to build affordable housing for families transitioning out of homelessness. Mrs. Harper, I'm Michael. We spoke on the phone about the Riverside project. Jessica shook his hand, noticed the calluses, the honest eyes, the wedding ring he still wore on his left hand. Please call me Jessica, and thank you for coming. The Riverside families have been waiting months for this housing to be completed. We'll have it done by December. I've put my best crews on it. Can I ask why this isn't your most profitable project? The foundation pays fair rates, but I know you could make more elsewhere. Michael was quiet for a moment. My wife died 4 years ago. Cancer? After she was gone, I couldn't function, couldn't work, couldn't take care of my boys. We lost our house, spent 3 months living in my truck before her sister took us in. I'm sorry. Don't be. It taught me something. It taught me that anyone can fall, that the line between comfortable and desperate is thinner than people think. He met her eyes. When I heard about your foundation, about what you're doing for families in crisis, I knew I wanted to be part of it. Money isn't everything. Legacy is. Jessica felt something shift inside her, something she hadn't felt in years, not since Daniel. Would you like some coffee, Michael? I'd like to hear more about your plans for Riverside. They talked for 3 hours, about construction and foundations and children and loss, about rebuilding lives from rubble, about the strange ways grief could connect people who would never have met otherwise. When Michael left, Jessica sat in her office staring at the door he'd walked through. You're smiling. Rebecca stood in the doorway, eyebrow raised. I'm not smiling. You're definitely smiling, and you have that look. What look? The look my sister gets when she's interested in someone, the look I got when I met James. Rebecca sat down across from her. Who is he? A contractor. We're working together on Riverside. And nothing. He's a business partner. Jessica, I've known you for 4 years. I've seen you through custody battles and SEC investigations and 18-month legal disputes. I've never seen you smile like that. Not once. Jessica felt her face flush. It's nothing. He's a nice man. He lost his wife. He has kids. We have things in common. That's not nothing. That's the beginning of something. I'm not ready. You might never feel ready. Sometimes you just have to take the leap and trust. You'll learn to fly on the way down. Jessica thought about Daniel, about the life they'd planned together, about the future that had been stolen by a heart that stopped without warning. I loved my husband. I know you did. Loving someone else feels like betraying him. Or it feels like honoring him. Daniel would want you to be happy. He would want Emma and Hope to see their mother living fully, not just surviving. How do you know what Daniel would want? Rebecca's eyes were gentle. Because that's what I would want. If I died tomorrow, I'd want James to find love again, to build a new life, to show our children that loss doesn't have to be the end of everything. The words landed somewhere deep in Jessica's chest, a place she'd kept locked for nearly 6 years. I don't know how to do this. Nobody does. That's what makes it terrifying and wonderful. Rebecca stood. Have dinner with him. Just dinner. See what happens. Jessica didn't call Michael for 2 weeks, then 3, then a month. She threw herself into work, into the foundation, into Emma's soccer games and Hope's art projects, into anything that would distract her from the feeling that had awoken that September afternoon. Michael didn't push. He finished the Riverside project on schedule, showed up to the ribbon-cutting ceremony, shook hands with the families who would live in the homes he'd built. Professional, respectful, patient. The houses are beautiful, Jessica told him as they stood watching families explore their new homes. Better than I expected. I added some upgrades, better insulation, energy-efficient windows, things that will save them money long term. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to. He paused. Jessica, can I ask you something? Of course. Would you have dinner with me, not as a business meeting, just dinner, two people who enjoy each other's company? Jessica's heart hammered. The fear was immediate, overwhelming. The voice in her head screaming that this was a mistake, that opening herself up meant getting hurt, that she'd already lost too much to risk losing more. But there was another voice, too, quieter, hopeful. Yes, I'd like that. They had dinner at a small Italian restaurant in town, talked for 4 hours, discovered shared loves of hiking and terrible movies and the particular chaos of raising children alone. The boys miss their mother, Michael said over dessert, every day, but they're resilient. They've learned to find joy in small things, in each other, in the people who show up for them. Emma still has nightmares about her grandmother, the woman who tried to take her away. 3 years later, and the fear is still there. Kids carry more than we realize, but they also heal more than we expect. Michael reached across the table, covered her hand with his. You're an incredible mother, Jessica. Emma and Hope are lucky to have you. I don't feel incredible. I feel like I'm making it up as I go. That's parenting. That's life. Nobody has a manual. We're all just doing our best and hoping it's enough. Jessica looked at their hands, his skin rough against hers, the warmth spreading up her arm. I haven't been on a date in almost 7 years. I haven't been on one in 5. I'm terrified. So am I. Michael smiled. But I've learned something about fear. It usually means you're on the edge of something important, something worth the risk. They went on a second date, a third, a fourth. Introduced their children carefully in controlled settings, watching for signs of distress or rejection. Emma was cautious at first. Is Michael going to be my new dad? No, sweetheart, nobody can replace your daddy. Michael is just a friend, a good friend. But you like him, like him. I do. Is that okay to like someone when daddy's gone? Jessica knelt down, took her daughter's hands. Your daddy would want me to be happy. He would want all of us to be happy. Liking Michael doesn't mean I love daddy less. It just means my heart has room for more. Emma thought about this. I think I might like him too. He's nice, and his boys are funny. Carlos and Diego, they're a handful. But a good handful, like Hope. Jessica laughed. Exactly like Hope. Hope at 5 was easier. She accepted Michael immediately, drawn to his gentleness and his willingness to sit on the floor and color for hours. Mikey colors good, Hope announced one evening after Michael and his boys had left. Better than Mommy. Hey, I color well. You stay in the lines. Mikey makes the colors dance.
George.
The colors dance. Uh-huh. He says art isn't about being perfect. It's about being you. Jessica felt her heart expand. This man was teaching her daughter things she hadn't known she needed to learn. A year passed. Michael proposed on a hiking trail in the mountains, the same mountains where Jessica had once fled with nothing but desperation and hope. I know this is fast, he said, ring trembling in his hand. I know we both have baggage and scars and children who need stability, but Jessica, I love you. I love Emma and Hope like they're my own. I want to build a life with you, a real life, whatever that looks like. Jessica looked at the ring, at the man holding it, at the future he was offering. She thought about Daniel, about the life she'd lost, about the years of struggling alone, of fighting battles no one should have to fight, of building something from nothing through sheer stubborn will. Yes. Yes. Yes, Michael, I'll marry you. Shitty? They held each other on that mountain trail, crying and laughing and planning a future neither had expected to have. The wedding was small. Frank walked Jessica down the aisle. Martha sat in the front row, tears streaming. Rose catered the reception, refusing payment. Rebecca served as maid of honor. Dr. Reyes attended as a guest, watching her patient finally let herself be happy. Emma stood beside her mother holding a bouquet of wildflowers. Hope scattered petals down the aisle. Carlos and Diego served as ring-bearers, solemn with responsibility. I take you, Michael, to be my husband, to love and cherish, through whatever comes. I take you, Jessica, to be my wife, to protect and support, through whatever comes. They kissed while their children cheered, a blended family, imperfect and beautiful. Afterward, during the reception, Emma approached Jessica with that serious expression she'd inherited from her father. Mommy, are we a real family now? We've always been a real family, sweetheart. Now we're just a bigger one. With brothers. With brothers. I always wanted brothers. Emma grinned. Even if they are kind of annoying. The best brothers are always kind of annoying. Is that a rule? That's the truth. Jessica watched her daughter run off to torment Carlos and Diego, watched Hope dancing with Michael, her small feet on his shoes, watched the family she'd built from ruins celebrate in the mountain air. 6 years ago, she'd been counting $67 on a sidewalk. Now she was here, surrounded by love, surrounded by people who had chosen her, who would fight for her, who saw her worth not in dollars, but in character. Michael caught her eye across the reception, smiled that smile she'd learned to love. She smiled back. Whatever came next, they would face it together. And for the first time in a very long time, Jessica Harper. Now Jessica Torres was not afraid of the future. She was excited for it. 10 years of marriage changed everything and nothing. Jessica Torres woke each morning beside a man who loved her completely, surrounded by children who had become siblings without question in a home that had grown from condemned cabin to sprawling family compound. The foundation had helped over 12,000 families. The endowment had grown to $97 million. The Robert Harper name had become synonymous with hope throughout Colorado and beyond, but some things remained constant. The nightmares that still surfaced occasionally. The memory of $67 that never quite faded. The understanding that wealth was temporary, but character was forever. Emma turned 20 on a crisp March morning. Jessica watched her daughter open presents, this young woman who had once been a 4-year-old asking when they could go back inside, who had watched her grandmother hit her mother, who had helped deliver her baby sister on the floor of a cabin during a blizzard. Mom, this is too much. It's your 20th birthday. Nothing is too much. A car college paid for a trust fund I can't touch until I'm 25, and now this... Emma held up the envelope Jessica had handed her. Inside, a letter offering her a position as junior program director at the Robert Harper Foundation. You're giving me a job. I'm offering you a job. There's a difference. You have to earn it like everyone else. But I haven't even graduated yet. You graduate in 2 months, and you've been volunteering at the foundation since you were 12. You know our programs better than half the paid staff. Jessica took her daughter's hand. Emma, I'm not going to run this foundation forever. Someday I want you to take over, but only if you want it, only if you've earned it. This job is the first step. Emma's eyes filled with tears. What if I'm not good enough? You're my daughter. You survived things that would have broken most adults. You're more than good enough. Hope bounded into the room, 15 now, with her father's dark eyes and her mother's stubborn chin. Is Emma crying again? She cries at everything. I do not... You cried at that commercial about the dog. The dog was lost. The dog found his way home in like 30 seconds. Michael appeared behind Hope, coffee in hand. That easy smile Jessica had fallen in love with. Ladies, let's not kill each other before breakfast. Tell Hope to stop being annoying. Tell Emma to stop being a crybaby. Both of you stop being yourselves. Michael kissed Jessica's cheek. Happy birthday to our oldest. Carlos and Diego are making pancakes. I suggest we eat them before they burn down the kitchen. The family gathered around a table that had grown from 4 seats to 8 over the years. Carlos 22 now and finishing engineering school. Diego, his twin, pursuing medicine. Emma and Hope. Michael and Jessica. A family assembled from tragedy held together by choice. To Emma, Michael raised his orange juice. 20 years of being the most responsible person in this house. May your 20s be slightly less responsible and significantly more fun. Hear, hear. They ate together, laughing, arguing, being a family in all the messy, beautiful ways families were supposed to be. Jessica watched them and felt that familiar ache of gratitude, the knowledge that none of this was guaranteed, that everything could change in an instant. Her phone buzzed. Rebecca's number. I need to take this. She stepped onto the porch, the same porch where she'd once stood terrified and desperate, where she'd watched snow fall on the night she discovered her grandfather's secret. Rebecca, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Something's happened. Margaret Morrison is being released from prison next month. She served her full sentence. Jessica felt her blood freeze. 15 years since she'd seen Margaret's face. 15 years since the woman had tried to steal Emma's trust fund. 15 years of peace shattered by 8 words. She can't contact us. The restraining order expired when she went to prison. She's a free woman now. Legally, she has every right to reach out. She tried to steal from her own granddaughter. She served her time. The law considers her debt paid. Jessica gripped the porch railing, knuckles white. What do I do? That's up to you. You can get a new restraining order if she tries to contact you, or you can wait and see what she does. Some people change in prison, some don't. Margaret Morrison doesn't change. Maybe not, but Emma's an adult now. If Margaret reaches out to her directly, you can't legally stop it. The words hit Jessica like a physical blow. Emma was 20, an adult, capable of making her own decisions about who to let into her life. I need to tell her. That might be wise. Better she hears it from you than gets blindsided. Jessica hung up, stood on the porch breathing slowly, trying to process this new threat to the peace she'd built. 15 years. It had taken 15 years, but Margaret Morrison was back. She found Emma in her room, packing for her return to college, sat on the bed, tried to find words. Mom, what's wrong? Your grandmother is being released from prison next month. Emma's face went pale. 20 years old, confident, capable, and still that 4-year-old girl flickered behind her eyes. The one who had watched her grandmother slap her mother. The one who had been offered as a bargaining chip. She can't come here, right? Legally, she can do whatever she wants. You're an adult. If she contacts you directly, I'll tell her to go to hell. Emma? I mean it, Mom. That woman tried to take me away from you. She tried to steal from my trust fund. She made you cry every night for 18 months while I listened through the walls. Emma's voice was shaking now. I don't care if she's served her time. I don't care if she's changed. Some things can't be forgiven. Jessica pulled her daughter close. You have every right to feel that way. Do you feel that way? I don't know what I feel. I thought I'd moved on. I thought I'd made peace with it. But hearing her name again... Jessica shook her head. It's like being back on that sidewalk, counting $67, wondering how I was going to keep you alive. You did more than keep me alive, Mom. You gave me everything. I gave you what every child deserves. A safe home, a family who loves them, the chance to become who they're meant to be. Not every child gets that. That's why we have the foundation. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then, if she contacts me, I want you there. I'm not facing her alone. You'll never have to face anything alone. I promise. 3 weeks later, the letter arrived. Jessica recognized the handwriting immediately. The same careful script that had appeared on birthday cards she'd intercepted for years, cards Margaret had sent from prison that Jessica had never shown Emma. She opened it with hands that trembled despite her determination to stay calm. Dear Emma, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know I did terrible things to you and your mother. I've had 15 years to think about what I did, and I understand now that I was wrong. About everything. I would like the chance to apologize. In person, if you're willing. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just asking for 5 minutes. To say I'm sorry. To see the woman you've become. Your grandmother Margaret. Jessica read it twice. 3 times. Searching for the manipulation, the hidden agenda, the trap she knew must be there. But all she found were words that sounded almost human. Emma came home that weekend. Jessica showed her the letter. Watched her daughter read it with an expression that shifted from anger to confusion to something that might have been curiosity. What do you think? I think she's manipulating us. I think she wants something. Probably. But she's also 78 years old. She's spent 15 years in prison. She lost everything, her money, her reputation, her family. Jessica took a breath. I'm not saying we should forgive her. I'm saying we should consider whether meeting her might help us. Not her, us. How could meeting her help us? Closure. The chance to say what we never got to say, to show her who we became despite what she did to us. Emma stared at the letter. Would you come with me? I wouldn't let you go alone, even if it hurts. Especially if it hurts, that's what mothers do. They met Margaret at a coffee shop in Denver. Neutral territory, public space. Michael waited in the car outside, ready to intervene if needed. Jessica barely recognized the woman who walked through the door. Margaret Morrison at 78 was a shadow of the formidable matriarch who had thrown her out 20 years ago. Thin, gray, moving with the careful steps of someone whose body had betrayed them. Jessica, Emma, Margaret's voice was hoarse, diminished. Thank you for coming. We almost didn't. Jessica kept her voice neutral. Sit down. They sat across from each other, 20 years of pain compressed into a single table. You look well. Margaret's eyes moved from Jessica to Emma. Both of you. I've read about the foundation, what you've accomplished. It's remarkable. We didn't come here for compliments. I know. Margaret's hands shook as she lifted her coffee cup. I know you didn't. Then why did you want to meet? Margaret was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice cracked. I wanted to apologize. For everything. For throwing you out. For trying to take Emma. For the lawsuit. For the fraud. For every terrible thing I did. Apologize. Emma's voice was ice. You tried to steal my trust fund. Money my mother set aside for my future. And you want to apologize. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. You weren't wrong, Margaret. You were cruel. There's a difference. You're right. I was cruel. I told myself I was protecting the family, protecting Daniel's memory, but that was a lie. I was angry. Angry that he died. Angry that he left us, and I took that anger out on the only person who was truly innocent in all of it. My mother shall both of you. You and your mother. Margaret looked at Jessica. You loved my son. I knew that. I always knew that. But admitting it meant admitting that he'd made the right choice, that he'd found happiness without our help, and I couldn't accept that. Jessica felt something shift in her chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, maybe not ever, but something. Why are you really here, Margaret? Because I'm dying. The words landed like stones in still water. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. They gave me 6 months, maybe less. Margaret's hand went to her stomach. I'm not telling you this to get sympathy. I'm telling you because I don't have time for games anymore. I don't have time for manipulation or strategy or any of the things I used to be good at. I just have time for truth. Emma's face had gone pale. You're dying. Yes. And you want us to... What? Forgive you. Comfort you. I want you to know that I'm sorry, that I wish I'd been different, that I spent 15 years in a cell thinking about the woman I could have been if I hadn't let grief and anger control me. Margaret met Emma's eyes. You were 4 years old. 4 years old, and I told you that your mother wasn't family. I told you that you belonged to us, not to her. What kind of grandmother does that to a child? The kind you were. The kind I was. Yes. Margaret nodded slowly. I can't undo what I did. I can't give you back the years of fear and uncertainty. All I can do is tell you that I'm sorry, and hope that maybe someday you'll be able to move on. Not for my sake, for yours. Jessica reached across the table, took Emma's hand. We've already moved on, Margaret. We built lives that have nothing to do with you or your family. Emma graduated top of her class. She runs programs at our foundation. She's engaged to a man who loves her completely. She has siblings who would die for her. She has everything. I know, I can see that. So your apology doesn't change anything. It doesn't heal anything. It's just words. I know that too. Margaret stood slowly, painfully. I didn't expect forgiveness. I just needed to say it, to look you both in the eyes and say I'm sorry, that's all. She walked toward the door, stopped, turned back. Emma, you have your father's eyes. Daniel was the best of us, the kindest, the most generous. I see him in you and it makes me realize what I almost destroyed. Her voice broke. He would be so proud of you, so proud of both of you. She left. The door closed behind her. Jessica and Emma sat in silence for a long moment. Do you believe her? Emma finally asked. I believe she's dying. I believe she's scared. I believe she wanted to see you one more time before the end. But do you forgive her? Jessica thought about the question, about 20 years of healing, about the woman she'd become and the woman she'd been. I forgive her for me, not for her, because carrying that anger is exhausting and I've spent too many years already. But I don't forget. I'll never forget what she did, and I'll never let it happen again. Is that enough? It's what I have. It's what I can offer. Emma leaned her head on her mother's shoulder. I love you, Mom. I love you too, sweetheart, more than anything in this world. Margaret Morrison died 3 months later. Jessica didn't attend the funeral, neither did Emma, but they sent flowers, white roses, a card that said simply, May you find the peace you couldn't find in life. It was enough. It was closure. The years continued to accumulate. Emma married her college sweetheart, a teacher named James, who loved her fierce intelligence and tender heart. Hope followed her passion into art, becoming a successful illustrator whose work appeared in galleries across the country. Carlos became an engineer. Diego a surgeon. The family grew, expanded, transformed. Jessica stepped back from daily foundation work at 65. Emma took over as executive director, bringing fresh energy and new ideas while honoring the mission that had guided them from the beginning. The Robert Harper Foundation exists to ensure that no family faces homelessness alone, Emma said at the 25th anniversary gala. My mother started this organization with a simple belief that everyone deserves help when they need it most, that wealth is not a destination but a responsibility, that the true measure of success isn't what we accumulate but what we give away. Jessica watched from the audience, Michael's hand warm in hers. 25 years since she'd found the hidden room, 25 years since gold coins had spilled across her kitchen table, 25 years of building something that mattered. When I was 4 years old, Emma continued, my mother and I had $67 and 3 garbage bags. We had been thrown out by people who should have loved us. We had nothing except each other. But my mother never gave up. She never stopped fighting, and because of that, I'm standing here today. The audience applauded. Jessica felt tears streaming down her face. This foundation has helped over 15,000 families. We've provided housing, legal aid, job training, and hope to people who had lost everything. But the real legacy isn't the numbers. It's the principle behind them. The understanding that we're all one bad break away from disaster. That helping others isn't charity, it's survival. Because someday you might need help too. After the gala, Jessica walked through the foundation's headquarters with Emma. Past the photos on the walls showing families they'd helped. Past the children's drawings sent as thank you notes. Past the memorial to Frank and Martha Dawson, who had died within months of each other 5 years ago, leaving a hole in Jessica's life that nothing could fill. Mom, there's something I need to tell you. Jessica stopped. What is it? Emma's face was glowing. That particular glow Jessica remembered from her own pregnancies. James and I are expecting. Due in October. Jessica's hand flew to her mouth. A baby. A baby. Emma laughed, tears and joy mixing. You're going to be a grandmother. Jessica pulled her daughter into her arms, held her tight, felt the circle completing the generations, continuing the legacy extending beyond anything she'd imagined on that desperate night 25 years ago. Your father would be so happy. I know, I think about him sometimes. Wonder what he'd think of James, of the foundation, of who I became. He would be proud, so proud. Jessica pulled back, cupped her daughter's face in her hands. You're the best thing I ever did, Emma. You and Hope. Everything else, the money, the foundation, all of it means nothing compared to you. The foundation means something, Mom. It means everything to the people it helps. And they mean everything to me, but you came first. You'll always come first. The baby was born on October 15th, a girl, 7 pounds, 4 ounces, dark hair and dark eyes like Daniel, like Emma, like the Harper women who came before. They named her Sarah. Sarah Jessica Torres Mitchell. Jessica held her granddaughter in the hospital room, surrounded by family. Michael, Emma, James, Hope, Carlos and Diego. 3 generations bound by love and strotzpiezeren choice and the stubborn refusal to give up. Hello, little one, Jessica whispered. Welcome to the world. Sarah opened her eyes, looked up at her grandmother with that unfocused newborn gaze that somehow seemed to see everything. I want to tell you a story, Jessica continued, about a woman who had nothing and found everything, about a cabin in the mountains and gold coins hidden behind a wall, about a grandfather you'll never meet who saved our family from across the years. Mom, Emma's voice was gentle, she's 3 hours old. She can't understand you. She understands more than you think. Children always do. Jessica looked up at her daughter. I told you stories when you were this small. About your father, about who we were and who we wanted to become. Stories are how we pass on what matters. What matters? That we survived. That we helped others survive. That wealth means nothing without purpose. That family is who shows up, not who shares your blood. Jessica kissed Sarah's forehead. And that love is the only inheritance worth leaving. Emma sat beside her mother, looked at her daughter, looked at the woman who had given her everything. Thank you, Mom. For what? For not giving up. That night 25 years ago when you counted $67 on a sidewalk, you could have given up. You could have let Grandma Margaret take me. You could have surrendered. That was never an option. I know. That's what makes you remarkable. You never saw surrender as an option. Even when everything was impossible, you kept fighting. That's what mothers do. That's what you do. Not every mother is like you. Not every woman who faces what you faced comes out the other side stronger. Your special mom. I hope you know that." Jessica felt tears threatening again. 25 years of tears, of grief and joy and everything in between. "I know that I was lucky. Lucky to find your grandfather's hidden room. Lucky that the shares were still valid. Lucky that Frank and Martha were there when I needed them. That wasn't luck, that was you, making connections, earning trust, building relationships that saved your life." Emma took her mother's hand. "The money didn't make you who you are. It just gave you resources to be who you always were. Your great-grandfather said something like that in his letter. He was right, and so am I." They sat together in the hospital room, 3 generations of Harper women. Outside, the sun was setting over the mountains. The same mountains where Jessica had once fled with nothing. The same mountains that had given her everything. Michael appeared in the doorway. "Sorry to interrupt, but there's a crowd of people outside who want to meet the newest member of the family." Jessica looked up. Through the window, she could see them gathering. Rose from the diner, 92 now, but still sharp as ever. Rebecca Chen with her husband and children. The foundation staff, neighbors, friends. The community that had embraced her when she had nothing and celebrated her now that she had everything. "Let them in," Jessica said. "Let them all in." The room filled with love and laughter and the beautiful chaos of people who cared about each other. Jessica sat in the center of it all, holding her granddaughter surrounded by family, both blood and chosen. And she remembered. Remembered the sidewalk and the $67. Remembered the garbage bags and the fire hydrant. Remembered Emma's voice asking when they could go back inside. Remembered the terror and the desperation and the absolute certainty that she had reached the end of everything. But it hadn't been the end. It had been the beginning of a journey that led here, to this room, to this moment, to this legacy that would continue long after she was gone. "Mommy?" Hope appeared beside her 40 now with her own family, her own life, her own place in the story. "Are you okay?" "I'm perfect, sweetheart, absolutely perfect." "You're crying." "Happy tears, the best kind." Hope knelt beside her mother. "I never told you this, but I remember. The night I was born, the storm, you screaming, Emma holding my hand through the glass. You were 6 weeks old when you left the hospital. You can't remember." "Not the facts, the feeling. I remember feeling safe, feeling loved, feeling like I was exactly where I was supposed to be." Hope touched Sarah's tiny hand. "That's what I want for her. That's what I want for all the children in this family. To feel safe and loved and exactly where they're supposed to be. That's what we all want. That's what you gave us, Mom. That's your real legacy, not the money, not the foundation. This feeling, this certainty that we matter, that we belong, that we're home." Jessica pulled her daughter close, held her the way she'd held her on the floor of a cabin during a blizzard. Felt the same fierce love undimmed by time. "I love you, Hope." "I love you too, Mom. Always." The celebration continued until the nurses gently insisted everyone leave. Michael wheeled Jessica out of the hospital. Her joints weren't what they used to be, while Emma walked beside them, Sarah sleeping in her arms. "Mom, I've been thinking about the Foundation's 30th anniversary next year. Already planning. I want to do something special, something that honors everything you built." "What did you have in mind?" "A new program, housing for grandparents raising grandchildren. There are so many families where the parents aren't able to care for their kids and the grandparents step in. They need support too." Jessica felt her heart swell. "That's perfect, Emma. Absolutely perfect. I want to call it the Frank and Martha Dawson program. They were like grandparents to me, to all of us." "They would love that." "I know." Emma stopped walking, looked at her mother. "Everything I am, everything I've become is because of you, because you refused to give up, because you fought when fighting seemed impossible, because you taught me that wealth is responsibility and family is who shows up. I taught you what my grandfather taught me. What matters gets passed down. Then I'll teach Sarah, and she'll teach her children, and the legacy will continue. That's all any of us can hope for, that what we built outlasts us, that the people we loved carry something of us forward." They drove home through the mountain twilight, past the road where Jessica had once walked with $67 and 2 garbage bags, past the diner where Rose had given her a chance, past the hardware store where Frank had offered to fix her well pump without charge. The cabin stood waiting for them. No longer a condemned structure, but a beautiful home expanded and renovated over 25 years, filled with memories and love and the echoes of everyone who had lived and laughed within its walls. Jessica stood on the porch, the same porch where she'd once stood terrified and alone, Michael came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" "The night I found the hidden room, the gold coins on the table, Hope coming 6 weeks early while the storm raged outside. That was a hell of a night. It was the beginning of everything. If the storm hadn't knocked down that wall, if I hadn't been desperate enough to search, you would have found another way. You always do." "Maybe." Jessica leaned back against her husband. "Or maybe some things are meant to happen. Some secrets are meant to be found by exactly the right person at exactly the right time." "Do you believe in fate?" "I believe in persistence. I believe that people who don't give up eventually get lucky. I believe that my grandfather hid that fortune knowing someday someone would need it badly enough to find it. And I believe I was supposed to be that person." "Then it wasn't luck." "No, it was legacy." They stood together in the mountain darkness, watching stars emerge the way they had for millions of years. Constant, eternal, indifferent to the small human dramas playing out beneath them. But those small human dramas mattered. Jessica knew that now. They mattered because every life touched other lives. Every act of kindness rippled outward. Every refusal to surrender before it inspired others to keep fighting. She had started with $67 and 3 garbage bags. She was ending with a family, a legacy, and a foundation that would help countless more families find their way from desperation to hope. That was enough. That was everything. Jessica Torres closed her eyes and let herself feel it all, the grief and the joy, the struggle and the triumph, the terrible beauty of a life fully lived. And she knew with absolute certainty that she had become exactly who she was meant to be. Not because of the money, not because of the gold coins or the stock certificates or the hidden room, but because when everything was taken from her, when she had nothing left but her children and her stubborn refusal to surrender, she had chosen to fight. She had chosen to survive. She had chosen to build something that mattered. And that choice made on a frozen sidewalk 25 years ago, with $67 in her pocket and a 4-year-old asking when they could go back inside, had changed everything. Not just for her, not just for Emma and Hope, but for the 15,000 families who had found help when they needed it most, for the children who had grown up knowing they mattered, for the generations yet to come who would inherit a world made slightly better by one woman's refusal to give up. That was the real fortune. That was the real inheritance. That was the truth her grandfather had hidden behind a brick wall waiting for someone desperate enough to find it. Money reveals character. It doesn't create it. Jessica Harper Torres had proven that every single day for 25 years. And she would keep proving it for whatever time she had left. Because that was who she was. That was who she had always been. A mother? A survivor? A woman who turned tragedy into triumph. A woman who never ever gave up.